Joe on the road. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order at 7:05 by the clock on the wall. Welcome, everybody. I guess we'll start out with, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
No additions or deletions for me. None.
Oh, no.
No, none. All right, let's move to the approval of the minutes of the September 21st Police Commission meeting. Can I have a motion to accept?
Motion?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. All right. I think everyone's got the revised agenda or the correct agenda in front of them. So starting with departmental reports, first up is Deputy Chief Harden, the monthly report.
Good evening. I'm going to start off tonight with just going straight to the most important thing is Lieutenant Pellin's still in the hospital. We're awaiting his release. He is on the road to recovery from my understanding. I'd just like everybody to put their hearts and prayers into his rapid return and things that he has challenges with, that he overcomes them as the days go on. So he has a lot of work ahead, and I wish him well. All of us are praying for him and for a rapid return.
I think I can speak for everybody on the commission, obviously, and the department and everywhere else, that there was a lot of people concerned and praying for Ken. And
thanks for that, Brett. Appreciate it.
The next thing is, with regret, our secretary for the police department, she's called our confidential secretary for the chief's office, and she's announced her retirement. Ruth Kalidas has given her retirement papers in for November 15th. I haven't scripted this, but I'm going to say Ruth is an excellent person. She's genuine. She's a task-oriented individual that'll get anything done that you ask of her. She's very wholesome. I can't express that myself and the community and the department is going to lose a tremendous asset that the police department's had for 2.5 decades. She goes above and beyond. She's a very sincere individual, and she's brought 5 different chief administrations through, and I'd say that a lot of those chiefs wouldn't have done as well without her. So she was a tremendous asset to keep those administrations going, and it's with great regret that she will be moving on to the next chapter in her life.
And I guess I'd have to add to that I think Joey and I are the only two here when we interviewed Ruth and hired her for this job years ago. And it was kind of a situation where Ruth had to make the job up as she went along, and it has evolved all these years, and she's the reason that the processes that are in place are as good as they are and things operate as smoothly as they are. Joey, would you like to add anything?
No, jump in.
Because I know you worked very close with her.
Yeah, hi, Joe Porcerelli. I just want to say, Ruth, I'm sorry about this. You've done a phenomenal job. You know, I can't say enough. I just can't say enough. Things would come through the police department monthly, and when I became chief, the deputy chief and the chief happened to retire at the same time, and I was a lieutenant, and I was promoted to chief. And it was very difficult sometimes. We got through it. I wouldn't have been able to do it. Brent stated it. He's 100% correct. We wouldn't have succeeded without Ruth. I mean, in the beginning, it was tough because everything was a learning experience. Nothing was handed down to me. But I had somebody there, kind of like my right hand. Can I say right hand girl? I almost said right hand man. And I just want to say I hope that, and both of you, as Brent is leaving also, everyone says, you know, you should have a happy retirement. It's about having a happy and a healthy retirement. and I hope the best for you and your health. Not that there's any issues, you and your health too, Brent, that you have happiness throughout. And I want to thank you, and I want to thank you too. I mean, it's you've been phenomenal with me, and I know with the others. So, thanks, Paul.
Yep. Thanks again, Ruth.
And Brent.
And Brent. Okay, back to your monthly report.
All right, I have a lot of dense material here. Not dense, just a lot of topics to cover tonight, and I know there's other issues that need to be addressed. So, looking at the September activities for incoming calls, I just referenced last year's in 2020. We had 676 general assist calls. Right now we're at 439, so we've had a 35% decrease in our general assist calls. The call volume, this is just showing our shifts of the activity that we have. And compared to last year, right now, our incoming call volume on day shift has declined at 45%, 46%. And then our afternoon shift, we've had a decline about 12% on our incoming call volume.
Agenda? It's this is
This is our monthly field initiated activity report. This is what the officers do and what they're generating whenever they have their idle time. So they're looking for infractions or they're out looking for arrests that they can make. They do have a reflection on the general reports that they complete in the accident reports. Right now, we're showing that our verbal warnings have doubled, so the officers are out there making contact. They were at 499 last year, and they're at 993 this year. And then our written reports have went from 258 this year compared to 233 last year, so that they're almost on par. You'll notice that this month is a little bit light on a lot of activity that our officers would normally generate things with. We've been dealing with a significant amount of overtime. Officers have been covering shifts. I'll express later some of the shortfalls that we've been having to overcome over the last month and a half with some personnel changes and the lack of personnel availability. And so we'll cover those in a later discussion point.
Yeah, I got it.
Right now I'm going to ask Lieutenant Carmack to just step up here. He's got a couple of fields of interest that would relate to the monthly report, and then I'll pick up after him.
Hello. I'm going to be doing the monthly juvenile report, monthly detective report. Find them. And the training report. For the month of August, they had the Detective Bureau took in 38 complaints. 11 were assigned to the Detective Bureau, and they cleared 6, and there's still 3 active and 2 inactive. And for the month of August, for the year, there are 78 assignments. Some of the ones more of notice in the month of August. I had some suspended, a couple domestic violences that were both denied for various reasons. They had an opportunity to work with other cities, reference a large team for motor vehicle group. We had a large team for motor vehicle in Groseal. The detectives were able to see that was a similar activity that happened in other cities, got with assistance with other departments, and were able to coordinate with other departments and make some identify the suspects and locations for the reports. An OWI that resulted in a blood draw. It was kind of a lighter month for August. That was submitted by Detective Eric Vasquez. And the juvenile report, we have one of significance. It was a child abuse case that was brought to us about a 15-year-old female child. The detectives forwarded the reports to the CPS, and the Detective Bureau also followed up with it. And later on, the CPS determined through their investigations that there was no complaint. This is for the month of August, and then for the training report for August. One second here. Officer Benson went to SWAT training, his monthly SWAT training, and Officer Carrico did his monthly K-9 training. I can't seem to find the report in my packet here. Then I attended an online seminar. That was it for the month of August. That's my report for August. Chief, you want me to do September also, or? Okay. Any questions on the month of August, the report?
No questions.
Moving to the month of September, the Detective Bureau took in 22 complaints. 6 were assigned to the DB, 6 were cleared, and 4 are still active, and that made them for the year-to-date of 84 cases. Some of the significant events that happened for the month: there was an accident at a church in Meridian where one car, the driver of the vehicle was intoxicated, and he drove without braking right into the back of another car, sending the other car into a ditch. The officers were able to arrive on scene and arrest the driver of the first vehicle for driving while intoxicated. The department had a harassment complaint where an individual was deliberately tying up the non-emergency lines and 911 phone call lines for 6 to 8 hours, non-stop calling the department. The detectives conducted an investigation on and were able to get a warrant for their arrest for misuse of telecommunications device. That person was suffering from mental illness, and then what we had worked with actually the chief had worked with the individual's spouse, and we were able to get them help over an arrest. So they were taken to the hospital. So we had another operating while intoxicated, and then we had an individual who was arrested for suspended driving license suspended and warrants, which the person ended up having 9 additional warrants for other cities. So once he cleared our charges in the department, he was able to move on to another city and deal with his charges there. Moving to the juvenile report for September. Only thing of significance was over at the Playscape off of Macomb Street, a child or a young male did some destruction on some of the property and the playground equipment. Our detective bureau, with use of some technology, was able to identify the male, identify the parents, and come to a remedy, coordinating with school hours of service, and then closing that report. And then the next page, the monthly training report for September. I attended a law enforcement response to recent protest movements, and I also attended another understanding crowd dynamics and mitigation, de-escalation large-scale events. Officer Benson went to a 1-week SWAT training in Grayling, Army Air Force Base, where he was able to work with other SWAT teams to develop a greater understanding of working together as a team. And then Officer Carrico completed his monthly K-9 training, 32 hours for the month of September for training with his dog.
Now, AJ's SWAT training, has he completed the base training, so now he's just in the regular training cycle?
He's a full-fledged member of the SWAT team, but they do their monthly trainings, and this training that he went to on September 19th through the 24th is an event that they do every year. It's kind of a greater, deeper training, if I could put it that way, where they go over, like, they have cities that are set up with different scenarios, and they work with another SWAT team for like a bigger event and merging them together to coordinate ahead of time. So
Is he happy to be on SWAT?
I think he loves it.
Great.
Is there any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So continuing on, just giving you an overview of what's been going on in the last month and a half. The police department, with its reorganization, has been working on the replacement of a clerk dispatcher. Right now, we have a person that's in training for a 90-day window. They're considered part-time, so they're filling the void until we hire a full-time replacement. So that is in process right now.
He is a candidate for full-time.
He is a candidate, and there's one other candidate that is from the outside. The next thing that we're attempting to fulfill is the police officer position. We have 5 viable candidates right now that we've come down to. I'll get more deeper into that as we go into the rest of the agenda. But right now we have 5 viable candidates. Most of them are from other outside agencies. I don't want to get into specifics where they're from. But it's going to go next to the Police Commission for their review and for their interview process to take place, and that's coming up shortly. And then the last thing is the fulfillment of finding a replacement for Ruth Kalidas as our confidential secretary. So a lot of things are taking place. There's a lot of scheduling and negotiation with all of these individuals that are seeking employment. And so we've been actively trying to address all those issues lately.
So Brent, that particular one
Yes.
is pretty critical.
Yes.
And we've started to advertise, and I know we have at least one person that has applied. Where are we at on that one?
So the closing date for, excuse me, those applications is October 29th, which is a Friday. And Ruth, did you manage to get any surmountable amount of applicants that we have through the township yet? I don't believe we have that number. Yeah, we're still trying to assemble that number, so we don't have it yet. I will say, we went through Indeed, and that was a certain process in and of itself that we've never done before. And then we also put advertisements in the News Herald, or the, what is it, Heritage newspapers now. So there's a lot of pool of candidates, external and then internally with the police department. There's, from my understanding through the grapevine, there's some individuals that want to apply. So the format is at the 29th is going to be the deadline at 5 p.m. Prefacing that is that I'd like to have the police commission prepared for November 1st through the 5th to be able to do an interview process on one of those days or two, whichever you would be selecting, depending on how many candidates you want to viably go down to. So that would be the window of opportunity for us to keep things expeditiously moving along and not missing a beat. So with that, does anybody have any questions on the monthly report? There are some things with the ACO report and with the budget that I'm going to entertain as we go along, but the liaison report would be next. So I would yield to that for now if I could.
Mm-hmm. Anyone have any questions?
No questions.
No. Mike?
So liaison report's going to be sort of light. I mean, obviously there's lots of discussion, at the board level about the hiring of the chief of police. There's been a lot of discussion about, the impact of COVID on this department, a lot of concern. And I think, quite frankly, recognition that the team here has really done a great job based upon the constraints that they've have had to deal with. And so hats off, Brent, to you, the entire team. Everybody's really stepped up, and you guys should be very proud of what you've accomplished under some severe conditions. And the other thing I think that is of interest, the bridge is still on schedule. Okay, attended the last bridge meeting. I think it was last Wednesday. It seems as though things are going well. There's still some concerns about long-term fix of the bridge and the remaining piers and things like that. But lots of conversation going on, and I haven't had any more reports of trespassers. That was a big concern, so you guys seem to be handling that pretty well, as in addition to everything else that you got on your plate. The next meeting's Monday, and so I'm looking forward to that. And I think pretty much, unless there's any questions, that's the bulk of the liaisons report. Okay.
Jeff, anything? Scott?
Nothing.
Nothing. Thank you very much, Mike. So I guess you want to come up and finish off the reserve. Ace,
I'm just going to yield to the reserve report to, I believe Wes has a presentation, correct?
that's fine.
Good evening, Captain Price. This month's report's rather short. With the COVID, we were all out as a unit, so there was no hours for the month of September. We are back in service, so for October's meeting, we will address that then. Manpower, we have recruit Atala still in the Schoolcraft Academy, which he will be graduating on November 2nd, and the unit will attend that. That's all I have for this month right now.
So what's the ideal number of cadets or people in your department?
12.
Where are you at right now?
7.
And so what's the prospects, you think, right now to get closer to 12?
Right now, we are opening up for applications, as was mentioned last month. So we are also, with the department as well, looking for applicants as well.
Okay. Well, thanks for all that you guys do.
Thank you.
Really appreciate
Thank you.
it. The whole community appreciates it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next thing I wanted to address is the ACO report. And Julie is off on medical right now, ACO Cordis. She's healing well. We anticipate her back either sometime in November or December. Right now, we're under an agreement with Woodhaven Trenton ACO. We have 2 individuals that work there part-time that are doing coverage for us. So if anybody in the township has any needs for animal control, you can still call our central dispatch at 734-676-7100, and then we'll field the call from there and get anybody that needs service in relation to ACO if we can handle it in-house with our officers. And if not, then we'll ask for the support of the animal control officers within that adjacent jurisdiction. So we have that covered. We're under the agreement, and we can handle any event that would present itself to us. So we're good with that. For September's donations, Julie received a total amount of $7,797.50. Bottle returns were at $3,000. I'm going to show you a project that was done by a student, Briggs Damon, and he was doing Pets for Purpose, and there was another amount of $2,465 from the sale of the contents of a donated house that were received, and then the Pets for Purpose is a separate thing, and I'm going to show you a video here that kind of gives you an outline of what was going on with that. So there's a couple of things with this. Julie ended up dealing with a injured bird, but it's quite interesting whenever you see what the bird is about. Get things going here. So it's self-explanatory.
We received a report of an injured bird on Horse Mill near Thoroughfare. I arrived to find a red-tailed hawk standing on the side of the road. He was stunned. I was able to stop traffic with my truck, and I used a blanket to cover him and contain him into a carrier. I then contacted a raptor rehabber, Mark Tomich. He's helped us many times in the past. He does this self-funded, and he is considered a raptor expert. He has his own facility for rehabbing, and he meets me. Sometimes he comes to the island, but sometimes I'll meet him halfway, which I did in this case. And you'll get a good look of this beautiful animal. He's immediately assessing body weight, clarity of the eyes, general head to toe, looking for any obvious injuries. And we think this bird probably hit a guide-on wire or possibly was struck by a vehicle and was just stunned. I had checked with him about a week ago, and he's still working with the bird to rehab. He'll bring it back to the island to release.
So it's just standing alongside the road, eh?
Yeah, I guess for a couple hours. A passerby finally stopped. We had our annual inspection from the Michigan Department of Agriculture. The inspector spent a couple hours going over conditions of cleanliness, care of our animals, and record keeping. We had 4 cats go missing from their owners this month and were happily returned to their owners. One had been missing for an entire month, so that was a very relieved owner. And here you'll see a video of a resident who the cat was out all night, typically not an outdoor cat. And after talking with her, she searched the perimeter of the property and looked up to see the cat was on the roof. So she had a ladder and was very brave in getting up there as high as she got.
Be careful, Trish.
Got a good grab on the cat and safely got him down. And that cat looks pretty happy hanging on to Mama there to be off the roof after a whole night out in the elements.
Now I feel bad I made you come all the way here. No way. If I had moved that stupid grill.
Nope. And safely to the ground. Here you see Briggs Diamond and his mom Stacy with their final product of a fundraiser they call Pets with a Purpose. Awesome job here. This will be hanging in the lobby at the shelter in perpetuity. We're on our 6th and hopefully final dumpster at the donor house. We have over 100 hours of volunteer labor, and now we're just waiting on some final bids for interior work to be completed.
So to encapsulate, we're very proud of Julie for what she brings together for the police department's animal control unit. It started off with a bird rescue, and so she fielded the appropriate individuals that could handle that situation. It went into a donation. Briggs, who was pictured there in the photograph, is a high school student in the Honor Society, and he came up with this project idea for helping the animals at the shelter, that individuals would send a picture of their pet and a $25 donation, and they would form a collage. A lot of these animals were donated. Let me rephrase
Hi
that.
guys, I had another video planned for today, but as you can see from the title, something happened.
Technical difficulties. My apologies. So Briggs came up with this idea to have this collage move forth. A lot of the animals that are on the collage were animals that were adopted from individuals through the animal shelter. So it was kind of like a full circle thing. So, and she generated a significant amount of donations from that. And the last portion was a home that was donated by an individual that used to live in Groseal. She now lives in Ohio. She just wanted to be rid of the home. She has multiple homes, and she donated it to the police department as the intent to help animals. So,
Need a lot of work on the inside?
well, it took her weeks to be able to get all of the contents out of the home, but a lot of the contents was new items that were ordered through QVS and QVC and through Amazon and anything else, and they were never unwrapped. It was just a continuous purchase. So with that, a lot of those things were able to be auctioned off, and then with those proceeds, they were brought back in. And then now the effort is to get the home to be sellable. And to answer your question, it's a viable home. It has good bones to it. And so they're looking at the best possible solution to bring it to a situation to be presentable for the real estate market. So that's where we're at. The estimated amount is it's a guess, but I know at the bare minimum we're looking at about $400,000, and who knows what the top side could be, but that's up for debate still. But a very generous donation by a former Groseal resident, and we greatly appreciate that. All right, that's going to complete the ACO report. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Questions?
Nope.
When is Julie expected back?
Hopefully in November or December at the latest. All right. Next one's a real fun one. We're going to be going into the budget. So, get the Elmo operating. So in reference to the budget, police department's had some unforeseeable challenges that have presented themselves. There were 8 individuals that were off on COVID during the previous month and a half. We also had 1 individual on FMLA, which is a family medical leave. We had another one on long-term medical, and then we had the retirements of dispatchers. So we've been placed with a lot of challenges that are forthcoming. Our overtime compared to last year of 2020 is at 533 hours of overtime compared to the 239 of the previous year. What I can say is that the overtime that we incurred for COVID was between $13,000 and $14,500 just for the absences of those individuals being off. So the lieutenant put together a document, which I greatly appreciate, which allowed us to track the amount of administrative days that we've had off for individuals that were succumbing to the COVID symptoms and conditions. And so that has increased our budget allotment for this particular period.
So Brent, I can't help myself but to ask you a question on overtime.
Go ahead.
But I'm not, okay? That's a change.
Well, that's a first.
But
I'm bringing more out, so you'll probably have questions after I bring this
'cause
next topic.
I think you got a good answer, but do you see any opportunities, I guess, at a high level in this budget? For example, I was looking at insurance and bonds. You know, it's $65,000, and I think so far you spent $0. Is it, you know, as a manager, do you see any opportunities here where possibly, I know we have a couple retirements, so it's really going to be an ugly year, you know, with those buyouts and everything for the police department, but I was just kind of curious, from your perspective, is there any opportunities in here to save a few bucks?
Yes, and I'm going to show them to you. The line item that you presented, normally those line items I don't have control over, finance does, and she takes those out whenever they're necessary, so they may not be removed now, but at some point in time, whenever those need to be paid, then those will be subtracted from that amount. If you look at the spreadsheet that I have in front of you, let me back up. I'm going to move forward with this. So I don't have names on this, but this is some of the salaries and that are out of the full-time salaries. So, line item 706, these are expenses that we've had to pay. So there was 3 individuals that were individually retired that had to be made whole under medical. Okay, so that came out to $15,000 in this fiscal year. We had a retirement of an individual. That was another $15,587, which was a severance for their retirement that we were responsible for. We had another individual that was an officer that was severed from the force, and that cost us another $15,264. And then we had another dispatcher that retired, and that ended up being another severance payoff of $31,000. These are all contractual obligations. And the problem as a manager is that whenever we do our annual budget, we don't know when somebody's retiring. I mean, to be honest, I had one woman that stated that she was going to retire for 3 years and never retired. So, and we don't want to force anybody out, but we never know when these challenges or these fiscal responsibilities are going to present themselves to us. So that's just for this year up until the last retirement we had. So with that, that's just giving you an overview of unbudgeted things that will have to be either coming out of our budget and overlap or start going into our general fund. Okay. Now with this, what I'm going to explain is that when Lieutenant Pellin ended up purchasing a vehicle from Homeland Security for us, they asked us to front load and pay for the truck, which we did out of last year's budget. The thing that happens with budgets is that kind of like whenever the month of the bill happens or the year of the bill happens, well, we kind of paid for that truck last year, but then this year, that money that we ended up getting as our payment back from Homeland Security to pay off the truck came in this year's budget. So we ended up accruing an extra $35,000 initially. So right now, there's a surplus of $32,000 in that account. As I progressively go into this, I'm going to show you that where our vehicle purchase situation is, which I believe is good. But we're going to forego the purchase of a vehicle out of this account. It wouldn't be right because of the accounting of how it happened. But even still, that is another $33,000 right now that we're not going to be spending, that's going to be afforded to us in our regular totality of budget, if you will. So it's a significant amount that we can save. You know, for the smaller items that we've had, you know, training, we haven't really had the opportunity. So there's just smaller amounts, but this is going to be one of the most significant amount that's going to offset some costs that we've had. But to answer your question more succinctly, Mr. Jarecki, a lot of these things that are above a certain line item on this front page are based upon the township's responsibilities and whenever those bills come in.
We're really talking about things that are kind of within your control anyways. So
Yes.
that's kind of what I'm kind of
Yes,
focused on.
and those aren't, unfortunately.
That's good to
Okay.
hear.
But, you know, I mean, that's an extra $33,000 right now that we'll be able to offset that. And I think that'll effectively keep us, you know, at least close to what our budget projection would have been for this year. Also take into fact, though, is that the dispatchers that retired, you know, a couple of them were senior dispatchers. Well, the replacements are coming in at a lower rate, all right? The sergeant that retired, he's being replaced by a police officer that's going to be at a lower rate. And then concurrently right now, you know, with the void of this overlap with personnel, we're not paying for those fringes and benefits. You know, the sergeant, I would say, in an average number is $120,000. Well, for that year, for that officer's wages, benefits package, and everything, we don't have that expense right now. So there's a buffer there. It's a give and take right now during this transition that we should be pretty good. Afford me a little patience. I got a lot of documents here. I'm trying to make sure you get the material. So, what I did want to just point out that with our budget, this is kind of the mills of what we project, of what we can afford as the police department. And for the 2022, I'm looking for another sheet. For 2022, we wanted to stay within the 3.6 million, or it's actually close to 3.7 million. So it's 3,695,000. And if I reflect back to the second page of that budget that we were at, you see the $3,725,000 mark. So comparing those two with the projection and where we wanted to be, we were over a little bit, but that's just, you know, that was a common medium of where we were trying to be at, to not be exceeding and going into the general fund. All right, so just to kind of give you a better overview of everything and the challenges that we were facing. These are numbers that shows in previous years our budgets all the way up to the most recent one of 2022 at $3,725,000. Last year we were at $3,670,000. And the ultimate objective is to try and stay out of that fund balance so that we don't start emptying out the general fund pool, and that's where we were at. Can I say we're going to be over budget? I don't know. It's a little too early to tell, but hopefully that our numbers will come close. But historically, over the last several years, or a couple of years, we've been meeting our obligations to be under budget. In my defense, couldn't have planned COVID. This whole situation with COVID was not something that any of us saw on the radar that could have prepared us for.
You guys have done a good job reacting to this situation. Probably one of the biggest challenges along those lines that the department's ever had to face.
Well, the other thing is we don't have a line item for retirements either, do we? I think we really should have one, Derek. Because these things are kind of somewhat predictable. I mean, at least we should have an estimate. Because a couple of retirements could throw your whole budget off. You guys, you know, work hard as a team all year round, and all of a sudden, you know, everybody retires at some point, and so you just can't ignore it.
Yes.
It shouldn't be an overage situation every time it happens, because it's going to happen.
I think they've handled it as a journal entry, you know, back here at the township when those things come up.
Not sure, Joe.
But
Probably no.
Yeah, I've got to tell you, as the chief of police, I tried to get a line item. They wouldn't give it to me at all. And so at the end of the year, now I'm not, believe me, don't read into this, but I know that my numbers never matched Ann's at the end of the year. So I went in there finally, because, you know, running for township trustee, I was accused of going over budget every year. Well, the point was I was very close to budget, but I had 5 retirees, and every single year they took that money out, they used it from the general fund, wouldn't give me a line item, and then added it to my budget. Well, of course, that's how accounting works. So it looked like we were over, but we had some very big payouts, because on my time as the chief, we had the upper end retiring, and now, but we did have one, she was the ACO, and when Laura retired, but still, they're significant amounts if you have full banks. So that's why, you know, I'm not sure how you're doing it, but Brent can't, I mean, it's not Brent's fault. It's not Brent's fault being the chief and seeing.
we're not saying it is.
No, I'm just reiterating that absolutely not his fault at all. And I'm not blaming the township either, but what I'm saying is we never were able to get a line item. So unfortunately, Brent, what did you had this year? 4? 4 retirements? Yeah. Okay, so Brent has had 4. It's crushed. I mean, it's absolutely crushed because of the 4. I had the high-end guys leave. When I was there was 5 of us total, 5 total that left. And so each year when I was close to the budget, man, I was way over, because at the end, and I even went to the finance director, and she told me, sorry, but we have to put it's an accounting principle. When I take the money out of the general fund, it's got to go on your side as an expense. And I said, well, that blew my budget every year. And she said, don't worry about it. I mean, that's how we have it set up. Well, worried about it. Of course, I was accused of going over budget each year. So I want to make sure I mean, I know you guys understand, but it's not, Brent has no control over it because we don't have a line item. And it's true. I mean, that's what we got to look at as a line item. And if you don't want a line item, you're just going to take it from that, you know, you want to call it your fund balance, your emergency fund, your whatever you want to call it, your bank account. But it should be a line item in there. Maybe it could build up each year a little bit. So when, again, as Brent said, you said 4, I'm sorry, this year. Brent has had 4 in 1 year. I was lucky to only have 1 each year for, you know, the 5 years, but we were all at the upper, or not all but 1 were at the upper end.
We could probably take it offline and talk about it more, but I think it's something worth discussing.
Yeah, when we sit down, because we're trying to set up some time with Derek just to discuss all this, and this can be one of those items.
Yeah, I just wanted to explain how it worked, and it's,
you shouldn't
apparently it's still working that way.
Kind of uncontrollable, that's
Yeah, it's
treated
not-
like
yeah,
a
he has no
controllable
control.
to your detriment, which is
It
probably not
looks
fair.
bad. It looked bad for me on paper. I mean, it's going to look bad, but it's not something that either of us could control.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I believe I gave you a pretty good overview on the budget of where we're at and where things stand. Okay, having said that, does anybody have any questions on the budget?
That was great, thank you.
I appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Very comprehensive. And I have a motion to accept the monthly report.
Motion?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're going to move down into the departmental updates and discussion items. Before we go into that, again, anything that you want to bring up from the earlier stuff we talked about?
No.
Okay.
No.
So let's just go down the list there, start with the clerk dispatch hire.
So, excuse me, so there's a clerk dispatcher position open right now. We have a gentleman that lives on Groseal that is fulfilling that position for a 90-day window period that will expire on January 7th. So him and one other candidate are vying for a full-time position. We're going to be conducting the interviews on October 26th between those two individuals. And then once those are complete, we'll give you what our recommendation of. It'll be a review or an interview from myself, Lieutenant Carmack, and Sergeant Brozek. So those will be the three that will be doing that. And then shortly thereafter the interview, we'll give you what our opinions are, and you folks can determine how you want to handle it after that. Any questions on that topic? That was one bullet point.
Good.
What was
Very
the
good.
date again? I'm sorry.
For
October
which?
26th.
26.
October 26th. The next one is police officer interviews. So we have 5 officer candidates. They went through a pre-interview process to where we had I believe it was seven candidates that we went through. Myself, Sergeant Carmack, or Sergeant Brozek, and Lieutenant Carmack did the pre-interviews on that. What we have now done is Ruth's put together presentation packets on each one of those individual candidates to give to you. And then on the 21st, which is Thursday, between the hours of 5 p.m. and 9 p.m., the Police Commission will be doing those interviews of those 5 finalist candidates and assisting in making the final determination on who they would like to have to fill either 1 or 2 police officer positions. From my understanding, that's where we're at right now. Any questions on that? As I already prefaced earlier, a lot of them come from downriver and metropolitan departments. I believe it's a good pool. Initially, whenever we put out the interviews, let me rephrase that. Whenever we solicited for the vacancy, we were getting a very tepid response. I'm very confident that the Police Commission will be happy with some of the finalists that are in this selection of pool.
What's changed, you think, Brent? I mean, because it seemed almost dire before, you know, and now all of a sudden, looks like we have 5
Yes.
candidates.
I jokingly.
I don't expect you to know the answer.
No,
by the way,
but well, I will touch upon it, though. I will jokingly say inflation, because inflation is getting out of control right now. But a lot of the wages and the benefits packages of the departments that the officers are coming from, Groseal has a more favorable package that would be offered that they would find very alluring to them. So. Ruth has my agenda. What's the next one after that? Confidential secretary, is that the next one?
Yeah, that's next.
All right. So once again, Ruth hates whenever I say Ruth's replacement because she wants to hit me whenever I say it. She loves her job, but she doesn't want to leave. But
He doesn't have to.
I know. I think she wants to spend some me time for herself. But so the replacement for the confidential secretary, the applications have went out. We're soliciting those until October 29th. I know that we've put them on the MCOL site, which is the police officer's website. We've put them on Indeed. We put them in the News Herald or Heritage papers. Anything else, Ruth? Am I missing? Okay. Yeah. Lieutenant, did it ever make it on? We never got that far. Yeah. So irrespective of that, we're still at a crescendo that we've solicited quite a few applications that I know of that came through Indeed, so you'll have quite the selection pool. The question I would have from you is, do you want us to filter any of those before we give them to you? Or you could receive as much as 20 to 30, even maybe 40 applicants. So how did the Police Commission wish to proceed on that pool of candidates?
No, we'll talk it over and we'll get it to you.
Okay, fair
In
enough.
the next, before the
date.
application period closes, we'll sort that out.
Yep, just need to know how you want to filter some of those applicants, all right? And I believe that's, what's next? I still don't have mine for what's the topic? Okay, I'm going to sit this one out and let the police commission discuss the police chief's position. That's more of your purview than mine.
Well, why don't we skip that one real quick and cover the rest?
Okay, I can do that. Okay, so on the agenda, there's a recommendation for Todd Brozick to be promoted to sergeant. I would support that. He's next in line per our contract. Going along with the discussion points with the chief of police, just understand right now that Lieutenant Carmack is really the only manager right now, that other than myself, and once I depart in December, he will be the only manager for a temporary period of time. That'll leave Sergeant Brozick as the lone and sole sergeant. So I know you're not acting on it today, but I think you might want to, review of where your next in line sergeant is going to come from and if he's going to be placed on the roster as a sergeant. What I would, from speaking from me as the chief, I would not want to have the lack of positions for supervision not delineated, and just knowing that, whenever somebody gets an acting position or else they get what they call step-up pay on our shifts. The cautionary tale for you is that on our afternoon shift right now, because of things that were out of our control, we had a gentleman that was off on long-term medical. So the 3 individuals that were on that particular shift of afternoons never had a sergeant. And so what would happen is depending on how the schedule would go, the 3rd guy at the top may be a sergeant one day, the 2nd guy may be a sergeant the next day, the 3rd bottom guy or woman may be a sergeant the next day. And the problem with that is that there's no continuity in communication, because there's a total breakdown, because you have 3 different individuals in the course of a week, which may be taking that supervisory position. However, that person is now lost in the flux of who's being accountable to who. So for right now, let's just say Doug, Lieutenant Carmack, is essentially a manager right now. He's trying to do the road, but there's a balance there that needs to happen. So he's supervising the day shift. Sergeant Brozick, with our intent in a very short period to place him on afternoons, but then midnights runs into the same situation that we have with the afternoon shift for that last year and a half, is that there's no supervision. So I don't want the next chief to be set up, and I don't want in the interim until that chief is selected, whatever that window of time may be, is that you folks don't have the right managerial schedule for individuals to be able to have somebody as their go-to person, that's going to be answerable as a supervisor. It really puts us at a disadvantage on those shifts.
So Brent, in your opinion, the next up after Brozick, you'd want someone on the road, but to be a road sergeant, a shift commander?
Yes. But by contract, right now we have sergeant by seniority, and that individual would be Eric Vasquez. And, that brings its own challenges because he operates a lot of our AV equipment and our technical computer equipment and stuff like that. I believe it can be balanced and there can be a transition there.
We're training someone else on that as well, don't we?
We are.
We had that discussion.
There's a couple different people we're training with that. But that would be at the police commission's discretion of where he's placed. But, in my perfect world, he needs to be on the road so that he can supervise for the reasons that I articulated earlier. So, and like I can't express it enough, is that whoever or wherever in the future positions are made, there needs to be some accountability, and that accountability is lost with those different individuals just filling in on a day-to-day basis. So just something I want you to take aware of.
Currently, before all this happened, both sergeants were road sergeants, right?
Yes. We had Doug that was on midnights, and then we had McLaughlin, but he was on a significant long-term medical, so we didn't have a supervisor on the afternoon shift.
I think it makes a lot of sense. So nothing else, I think, we need to move as quickly as we can, providing ourselves with redundancy in those areas that you mentioned, where we only have, a single person or,
Sure.
that's got to be a priority, obviously. I know it is for you, but now it's even more of a priority.
Understood.
Just based upon what you just said.
Right, right.
You just made it a bigger priority for yourself, Brian. Congratulations.
Well, and I do, because I don't want to set anybody up for failure, and I want them to have the tools that they need to be able to do and carry on the
So to
torch.
clarify, the interviews that we're doing with the 5 candidates are to replace
One is to replace Sergeant McLaughlin.
McLaughlin.
And then upon my departure, I would recommend that you replace me.
Well,
I
but
mean-
I'm saying right now, the
Yes.
guy we're doing is to replace Danny McLaughlin.
Yes, and we're establishing an eligibility
So
list if you
as
choose
soon
to
as
keep it.
we, and the sergeant, we're promoting Brozick to sergeant, that would be,
I believe you're doing that tonight.
yes, that would be to take McLaughlin's space now that
Correct.
he's gone.
Yes.
And, okay,
And I don't think Lieutenant Carmack wants to go to midnight, so we would need to fulfill that
Oh.
position on midnights.
okay.
Yeah, I think we have to think about knowing that Brent, effective December 3rd, Brent, is that it?
Yes.
Okay. So it's gonna take us a while to replace him. It's almost like we should be looking at 2 candidates,
Well, we're gonna have,
right?
we're
I mean,
going to have to replace a second sergeant contractually.
assuming that someone moves up,
Right.
in the ranks.
Well, by contract, they will.
No, I mean, but
And so then as soon as we replace the second sergeant, now we have another officer that we need to replace, correct? So,
I guess I would just preface by, it depends on how things play out with the objectives of the chief and where those positions take
Right.
place. That will be a situation that'll present a
Yeah.
question mark.
no, we need to talk about it more and with management as well, but, it just seems to be very prudent as we go through this interview process to think in the back of our minds that,
oh, absolutely.
we're
There's a lot of,
gonna be looking at 2 people. And it's good to hear that, we got 5.
Mhm.
So, okay.
okay,
Any other questions on
Sergeant.
that topic?
That's good.
the next item was staff and command, Carmack.
I'm not really part of that discussion, so I'm
Well,
going to yield to.
Brought that up. Did you want to cover that, Mike, or?
Staff and command, yes. So, the situation is, obviously, when Brent retires, we're going to be, short on managers. Technically, we could be in a position where we don't have any. So so we need to start planning for the future and providing the necessary training for those, high potential employees that want to move up and can move up, the proper training. And we have that need over here. And then, of course, we're still in crisis mode because to attend staff and command, I believe we pull an individual out for a week every month. And really, we're not in a great position to be doing that, but I think this really needs to be on our radar. And I think we need to talk about it as a group. But as soon as we have any level of stability, which to me that would come with potentially, some hires, maybe 2 sergeants in place. I think it's going to be a fluid process, but as soon as we can sit down and talk to, the department leadership and say, hey, look, we're in a position for someone to attend that training, I think we need to get Doug signed up and going. And that's really the reason why I wanted to have this on here. Right now, we're not at that point, but, you know, with any luck, you know, and some work and getting through these interviews and hopefully hiring some good officers, and, you know, having our sergeants in place, I think, you know, we need to schedule Doug. And I'm sure Doug wants to go. Did he leave? He's there. He's back in the corner. So Doug, this is something you are interested in, I'm sure, and you understand where I'm coming from. Now, yeah, I don't think so either.
Well, we don't have coverage right now.
We're all in agreement, but I think it has to be on our radar, and you know, you could eventually maybe look at 2 people at some point, but I think 1 for now. I mean, we, you know, as your sergeants, you know, acquire experience and they have potential and desire to move up, then it's probably best that they obtain that that type of training before they really need it. You know, so ideally, you know, Doug would have it already, quite frankly, you know, pre-COVID or something. So just some thoughts. That's how I feel about it. Certainly that's how we would do it in the business world. And I think it makes sense here as well. So I just wanted to put that on everybody's radar. And I think, you know, we need to revisit this again as soon as we get some stability within the department.
Hey, Scott, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I believe we're all in agreement that now is not the ideal time to pull somebody out of the department for a week every month, but we need to keep an eye on this and coordinate with Chief Harden as far as, you know, future times of when something might be possible, and also when that needs to be, you know, when he has to be enrolled in those classes also.
When is the next class?
You know,
We need
that's
to
a good
decide.
point. It just needs to be coordinated.
I don't believe it was like we could decide to send them next week. January, that's what
January?
I thought it might be that. Jeff, you have anything?
I don't. I agree with what you're saying.
If I could just jump in, I am supportive of the staffing command. I did go to the police and fire staffing command schools at Eastern. The one that Doug is showing interest in has a real good academic program. The benefits, just so that you're aware of, is not only is he going to learn how to operate an organization at the management level, but then the biggest thing is that he's going to be introduced to other chiefs that are new, that are in his same position, that are just up-and-coming chiefs that don't have the background of being in these positions. And so the ultimate benefit that he's going to have is networking with those individuals, and then they become a pool of individuals that he can draw upon. There's also a social networking website amongst those individuals that graduate through that program, and then those officers that are now the new chiefs or deputy chiefs are able to coordinate back and forth with each other on any type of problems they may encounter or any recommendations that they're looking for. And so they're able to go through that network and to be able to solicit a lot of valuable information for them to do their job better. So it's a very good program, and he would learn a lot from it.
Thank you for that. That's some really good points.
Okay, I guess what I propose is that we wrap up items 7 and 8 under the discussion items, the deer call and the vehicle fleet, and that we discuss the police item 4, the discussion on the police chief hire under the action item as part of the action item discussion on item 2. So, whoop, there you go.
I moved on.
You're quick.
Okay. All right. I just want to give you an update on the deer call activity. So back in March, we were at a 400 count, and we still hadn't completed our culling activities. So whenever we did, we ended up getting another 50. So that brought us down to 350 in actual numbers that we were using as an average.
Do they know how accurate that count is from
Tim,
historical?
see how accurate he is.
Pretty damn accurate.
Well, there's a lot of people that...
Let me tell you, my back ached for about 3 days after spending 2.5 hours up in a helicopter, crunched down like this, counting. And the way we did it is we did separate counts. So, Darzniak, Pete, he counted separately. Actually, the pilot kind of counted separately, and I did. So you had 3 people doing independent counts. And, the important thing is you have snow, lots of it, okay? And the deer are yarded up, because when you see them, you just don't see, 400 deer evenly scattered across Groseal. You see them in groups. And so, and you see one group, and you go down and see the next group, and it's less likely you're going to be double counting. And I think we were, I don't know, Brett, you remember, we were probably about 20 or 25 deer apart when Pete and I discussed it. We kind of took the rounded up a little bit or rounded down, I can't remember. But it was pretty close to 400, and then of course you took out another 50. And so that's real accurate count, because they see the deer that they've taken out. And so, go ahead, you haven't finished, but I think and then we plan on doing that again this year, I'm sure. Is that, and
So what we did was we ended up securing for a fall deer call, which we just terminated recently, and we were able to get an initial 50 permits, and then we asked for another 50 after we ended up exhausting those first set. So we ended up getting another 75 in the last couple of months. So that brought our number down to 275, if you will. And we anticipate, according to our DNR source, which is our point of contact, he believes on average that it's a 50-50 split between does to the actual bucks. So if we took half of that number, that would mean that we essentially would have, just on average, 137 does that would have the capability of having deer. So with those numbers, what our target goal is to do another 200 in the winter cull that we will have beginning at the end of December, and bring those numbers down. If we just take the 275 that we're at right now, and let's just say each of the does had one birth, that would bring us up to 412. And then if we take 200 off that 412 in December, we'd be down to about 212.
I think realistically, probably it's more like 1.5, maybe.
That may be true.
So, but I think the good news is, we're starting to make a dent in it. I think we got a real good chance of reducing the population this year, and so that's great news. And thank the entire team for their efforts, and the fact that we got an incremental call in the fall. I mean, that's just great. It's music. And let me ask you this, and again, I don't want to stretch you too far on this one, but so last winter, what did we do in the winter call? Was it
200? It was
200.
It was 100% what we had done the previous year.
And you guys have been running shorthanded, and you still got this done. I think that's great. Is there a possibility that we could get more than 200 permits in the winter and execute on them? And nobody's holding you to this, obviously, but I mean, what is the mindset of the DNR issuing the permits, and then what would you operationally, you have some constraints, that's pretty obvious, but just assume, would the DNR be receptive to that? Because obviously, 300 is still not a good number for the island or whatever we would be at, I'm not, again, I'm just asking for what your gut feeling is on this.
Right. In my discussions with the DNR biologist, he has a number in his head that he doesn't want Groseal to go beneath, but he won't give us that number. So is 200 this winter going to be a viable number? Talking to my detectives and the officers that are involved in the deer cull, they say yes. What I would state, and it would be argumentative between me and you, if it's one deer or 1.5 on the birth rate, I think your recommendation last year is that we do a aerial count in the spring, or not in the spring, but in the winter of this forthcoming year. And that will give us the hard numbers instead of, because I've heard somebody, you know, over the years have been 1.9 is the birth rate, 2.1, you know, all the way down to 1. So I want to use hard numbers and the actual factual numbers instead of hypotheticals is what I'm more comfortable
Seeing
with.
a lot of multiple births, you know, on some years.
And that's true. And that's true.
So, I mean, you're right, we have to figure that out. But part of it'll be obvious when we'll get to a point where we just won't be able to get them.
Right.
We won't be able to fill the permits because they'll be more difficult to
Well,
find.
Yeah, well, the fact that we're doing a hard count is gonna be really helpful, because I think last year was the first time we really did it in a few years, right? It was like,
Yeah, at least over a half a decade.
yeah, so.
But to answer your question more succinctly, I believe that that's possible. I just understand that our detectives have their full-time jobs, which we've had to try and do that balance with. And I did want to just give the accolades to the individuals is Detective Pete Darznik, Detective Eric Vasquez, retired Chief Mark Warnick, and Sergeant Kevin Doyle, who works for the Michigan State Police. Those have been our key guys that have been doing the deer call this September. So their efforts are greatly appreciated, and we wouldn't be where we're at if it wasn't for their assistance. So.
In another way, from an overview, we've been doing this for about 10 years, I think. I can't remember when did we start the deer culling?
Yeah, I'd have to check my
You
records on
remember,
that.
Joe?
Yeah. Bill did it for a year, then I took over at 9, so that would have been 2008. I believe 2008 it started.
Okay. So, and it was about 600, I think, with our first count from the,
It was just under that.
but just using round numbers. So in 12 years, we've gone from 600 to 275. So it shows we got to keep going because, you know, we've hit it pretty hard for 12 years and we're making the right movement, but I don't think we're anywhere near the guy's bottom number yet.
I agree. Any other questions on that topic?
Any other questions on the deer call?
No.
Next
Vehicle
one.
fleet.
Vehicle fleet. Okay, so I just want to give you an update on our current vehicles. The newest vehicle we have is a 2021 Ford Utility. One of the officers, I asked for him to give me a solicitation on some of the positives and negatives. He gave up most positives, only other than the lighting, the interior for the officer. The dome lights and the interior lights are rather dim for the police officer to do his job effectively in writing citations or doing any type of paperwork. The officer did state that they were very happy with the package compared to the previous vehicles that we have had. They kind of get the best of both worlds between an SUV and a sedan. So we were using full-size Expeditions, and then we were using Dodge Chargers. You know, these are crossover vehicles, so they're a lot more user-friendly, a lot more storage space for all of the equipment that the officers carry. Just understand that we're carrying AEDs, which are automatic external defibrillators for persons in cardiac arrest. We're carrying a thumping machine, which is a device that ends up doing the compressions for a cardiac arrest person. We carry shovels. We carry, a plethora of equipment, breathalyzers. So we need the ample storage area, even down to shovels and brooms that we utilize on different crash scenes or customer service situations. So, a couple of the officers have been receptive and had positive remarks on the current vehicles that we have. Mr. Jarecki had asked for a line. I'm not the Wizard of Wall Street on math, so don't hold me totally on this. But so Mr. Jarecki had asked for just kind of a synopsis of our vehicle fleet. So the vehicles that you have in your packet, we're updating those now because we just brought on additional vehicles that have come online in the last couple of weeks. So there's a crossover here of vehicles that are being decommissioned, and then new vehicles that are replacing those that are being decommissioned and being brought online. So on average, though, our vehicle fleet is 3.3 years if you take into consideration the years of our vehicles. We have 5 vehicles right now that are 2020 or 2021s. And then on average, I did an odometer change or check between the two different years for currently up to September for this year and September up for last year. So on average, we're putting about 36,988 miles as a totality on vehicles, per vehicle per year. So that's the average that you were asking for, Mr. Jarecki.
Yeah, the average miles that you put on, or the average mileage on them? Is this
The average miles of the fleet,
Fleet.
yes.
Yeah, that was what I was asking for. So based on this 21, assuming we got the same number of vehicles, whatever, we're in a little bit better shape than what we were in 2020.
Yeah, there's 17 vehicles that are listed here right now.
Both years, I can't really tell.
Yeah, 2016 is the oldest, and then all the way up to 2020, or I'm sorry, 2014. We do have an expedition that's up for debate. Myself and Lieutenant Carmack have been discussing that. We have 2 expeditions right now that are around 90,000 miles. They're good vehicles. Right now with COVID, we've been kind of giving everybody their own vehicle. That way there's no cross-contamination with the staff, so it's working. The benefit of having the expeditions are that in the wintertime, whenever we do have any significant snow, they get around to where we need to go, and they're 4-wheel drive vehicles. So it just enhances the ability to get around. One of those vehicles, because we have 2 of them right now, could be decommissioned, and that's going to be up to the lieutenant and the next chief to determine what they want to do. But
Is there anything major issues coming up on those? Any red flags?
no, if you look at the budget that we have for vehicle maintenance that's in our packet right now, this year we sustained quite a substantial amount of older vehicle maintenance. All of those issues have been resolved right now, and the benefit now is that with all of these new vehicles that came online, those are under warranty, and we're not going to incur any of the expenses for the repairs and stuff. So all of these older vehicles right now, anything that we had knowledge of that needed to be fixed or repaired, we brought them up to speed. On the Dodge Chargers, one of the most significant things that we had were the front ends that were giving us problems. And so I believe most of those vehicles, we've had the front ends repaired to where they're up to the manufacturer's recommendations, that they're not giving us problems anymore.
And I don't expect you to know this, but any idea, if you do, what motors are in those expeditions?
I can't answer that. It's above my pay
I
grade.
think it's the standard, just
We
the
can find
standard.
out.
Well, wait a minute.
No, they're special.
They've got the Interceptor packages.
Well, whatever I ordered was ever the V8 at the time. They're not the Interceptor. They're
Oh.
just the standard V8 for the Expedition at the time.
Okay.
That's what I ordered.
One of the vehicles that we just did decommission was a Expedition, and an officer that we know took the vehicle whenever it was decommissioned and bought it on auction. He's very happy with the vehicle, and it's doing well. The issue with our 2 Expeditions that we still have is that I think they have a lot more mileage left on them, and I would be saddened to see them go. I think they're going to be an asset still for the department.
5.4 liter.
5.4.
Officer Benson must be driving one right now.
Any questions on that topic?
The reason, just so you guys know why I'm asking what motors, my brother-in-law is the master mechanic, also the auto shop teacher at Wyandotte, so he sees a lot of just things repetitive at certain mileage with certain motors, so it's just something that we could always use him as a resource to say, hey, these vehicles are at 90,000 miles. What do you typically see on these vehicles after 90,000 that is going to be catastrophic or not worth the value of keeping these things? So just something that we could use.
That's a good
in
resource.
the very soon, in the near future, because I try to keep an eye on it. Once you get to that 100,000, it seems like it's either sink or swim with vehicles. So.
Any other questions? And that will close out my conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if I can kind of make some suggestions. take care of our action items and the discussion that we left. The gentleman in the back on the, Joe? Rather than make, is he here for something specific? And because if it's we're gonna be talking about, you know, promoting, and we're gonna be talking about the chiefs and things, and that can probably take a while. I hate to make you sit there. If you had something else you wanted to discuss and could get it out of the way. So,
If it has to do with this, though, I mean,
Yeah.
you may want to sit. Okay.
okay.
Good.
That's fine. I just wanted, I saw Kathy, you came in. I'm glad you could make it. All right. Well, let's talk about the first action item and get that out of the way. And that's the recommendation for Officer Brozek to be promoted to sergeant. And I think you've already made your comments of that that's, besides the fact that it's contractual, that it's also a good move. A good
Yes, sir, I
candidate.
support it. Thank you.
So at this point, I think, does anybody have any discussion about moving Officer Brozek and promoting him to sergeant per the contract to replace Officer McLaughlin?
None whatsoever.
I'm fine with it.
Could I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion to
Motion to,
promote Officer Brozek to sergeant to replace Officer McLaughlin
Do we need an effective date on that?
per the contract.
Immediate?
Immediate.
Okay.
Do I have a
Second? Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Aye. So, the motion carries. Officer Brozek has been promoted to sergeant. Now, you'll take that to the township board meeting, right, Mike? But
It doesn't have to go.
But that doesn't, well, just as an information item.
It
But-
doesn't have to be on the agenda. I covered it already with Brian Friel. I was trying to get it on the consent agenda, and he says it's not needed, so
Very good.
it's up to, quite frankly, us and
Correct, that's the way
I
it's,
think,
that's
Brent,
the way it's outlined in
you'll-
chapter 67, but I just wanted to make sure.
you'll
we
make sure
seem
that
to have already
happens.
done it.
Talk to Ann and give him his raise. All right.
Great.
Congratulate him for all of us as well.
Certainly will. Thank you for that.
All right. So, second action item is to recommend Lieutenant Pellin be promoted to police chief contingent upon his recovery. And that ties in to the discussion item that was on the agenda for the police chief hire. I guess I'd like to do a couple prefatory remarks, if you don't mind. I've been involved with the police commission for about 30 years now, and in the promotion and hiring of the police chiefs, well, basically since Bill Barron, then Joe, and back when we had the opening and we were interviewing for the position that Bill Barron was appointed to, we did go outside and we talked to a number of candidates from outside the police department. And Mike, I think your father was part of those discussions. At that point, I think we had a Taylor chief, we had a Gibraltar, I think we had a Michigan State Police guy. I think there was a fourth one, but I can't remember, I'm too old. But they were all very good candidates. They all presented themselves well. But in the discussion after all the interviews were over, the police commission discussed, do we really want someone from outside? Do we need someone from outside the department, or do we have valid candidates within the department? And at that point, we looked at what those other people brought to our department or brought to the job, which was a lot of experience. But ultimately, we also felt, as a commission back then, that it was very important that the experience with the community was very critical. And that's what drove the decision at that time for appointing Bill Barron as chief. And I think the experience over the last 30 years of following that philosophy has been validated. We discussed that also meant we had to do a good job on all of our officer hires, so that the people that, as they progressed through the department, got their seniority, moved up to sergeant and that, we would have a good enough observations of the people's competence in that. But the key was for us to follow that philosophy, we had to make sure that we had good candidates coming up the pipeline. And I think that's proven to be a fact over the time, over these last 30 years. I think Bill Barron was an excellent chief. I think, even though he's sitting here, and Joey has been an excellent chief. The person that we interviewed at the time would have been an excellent chief. It was a tough decision when we appointed Joey. And we appointed Warnick from within. So in the last 30 years, the point I'm trying to make then is we've always tried to maintain bringing people along that would be competent to take over as chief, rather than take on some of the unknowns of going outside and bringing in a chief or someone with chief experience in other departments. And the other reason I think that philosophy has been validated is, and Joey, you know the numbers much better than I do, or Bob back there, as far as how many years, how many times we've been voted the safest community from a variety of different rating agencies. And it's been, what, 9 or 11? 8 in a row. Okay. So the performance of this police department following this philosophy, I think, has proven itself that it's a valid way to go if at all possible. We should try to promote from within. And that's been what we've tried to do over the last 30 years. And I just wanted to make that comment at the outset. Mike, you have any comment to that?
No, I mean, I understand that's been the process. I think it has worked extremely well for this community. I've lived here off and on for the last 40 years plus, and I think having a local person that understands the Roseville culture and community and all the expectations is extremely helpful. I think this time around in particular, there's even more reason to do it because, quite frankly, we're going to be very light on senior managers. We'll be hiring someone, and that will, in all likelihood, at least for a limited period of time, be the only manager officially. I mean, we could have acting managers and things like that. So having that community experience, given that fact, and to even make it that much more difficult, we're also losing Ruth. So, having an insider, Ruth is the glue that kind of keeps all this stuff together. I mean, everybody goes to Ruth. We've been fortunate with Brent, and and Doug, but, you know, they've been very fortunate that Ruth's been here as well when they were light-handed. I think we all know that. And so the prospect of losing Brent and Ruth and then maybe trying to bring somebody here from the outside is it's going to create some very, you know, significant challenges. And quite frankly, I think it's good for morale. You know, you train your people. You know, one of the things that I'm always amazed at when we go through these decks is the amount of training we give our people. I mean, we have a lot of well-trained individuals. The department heads have historically done a great job. So to bring somebody in from the outside and, you know, preclude one of our up-and-comers or whatever from you know, having a shot at those very few opportunities that we have is not good for morale. And I think that has a negative impact on the performance of the entire department. And so, yeah, I think it has worked extremely well for us in the past, and it's probably never been more important, I think, to you know, have someone leading the charge that, you know, came up through the ranks. And Brent now has, you know, pulled his name out of a contention, you know, so that leaves us with one individual. And we're in a very unique situation right now because that individual happens to be ill, recovering from COVID. And we know December 3rd that Brent's going to be gone. So we got to ask ourselves, what's the prudent thing to do? Well, we've gone 10 months without a chief of police.
Before we go any farther,
yeah,
I'd like to hold that just, you know,
okay.
At this point.
Well, I'm just kind of giving you an overview.
We're going to get into that, and I'll let you start us off in a minute.
Okay, fine. Go right ahead.
Scott,
Comments on whether we would look outside or continue the process of hiring from within.
I think just the way the department has come together over the last month and a half with all the officers off on COVID gives a real good understanding of how this department works together. You know, when you have that many officers off and you have officers that are canceling their vacation time to come in and work double shifts, it really goes to show the dedication that these officers give to our community, from the lowest ranking officer to the highest ranking officer. They really work together, and it's the perfect example of knowing each other and knowing their personal priorities that they have outside of work, and being able to communicate with each other to do what's best for our township. And it seems to be that as of right now, although the morale was not good historically with the department, it seems to be much better than it has been in a long time with the officers working together for the township. So I am always in favor of promoting from within the ranks, and I do share Mike's concerns about if we went outside the department. With Ruth retiring and Chief Hardin retiring at the same time, essentially, there is some significant concern about this department being able to be ran effectively with somebody coming from the outside, not knowing the functions of the department and the township and the community. With that said, we don't have an actual vote from the township board that says that they're not in agreement with Ken being promoted. And I haven't seen anything on the agenda necessarily that says they're going outside, but I also have talked with Mr. Jarecki, and he says that he's been informed that some changes are happening. So with that said, I do believe that promoting from within any organization is always the best cause of conduct or cause of action for anything of this type of nature.
Jeff, you have any comments?
I think Paul and Mike and Scott are spot on with what they're saying. The reason I wanted to go last is I just wanted to analyze what everyone was saying. I'm the newest guy here. I've only been in the community for maybe a little over 12 years. And I think it's important. I look at it almost in a business aspect, and we need to set this up to succeed right out of the gate, then potentially have several speed bumps that we could probably mitigate. I think it is important to look within now, maybe down the road, the next chapter, you don't know, but right now I think that's it's very important, and I think we should.
Okay. So, with those prefatory remarks, I guess I'll throw it to you, Mike, to lead.
Well,
because you had a specific
yeah.
outline you wanted to follow.
You know, I think it's important that we establish that we're in a different situation than what we were back in January of this year. So this is a very unique situation. And so I think we have to look at it as like a fresh look. In other words, and we have some very unique challenges with the fact that we have Officer or Lieutenant Pellin being our primary candidate. He was the one we unanimously recommended, but he's sick now. I don't like the idea of kicking somebody when they're down, but I do look at this as a new process, a new look, and a new decision, okay? And so this is an open meeting. There had been some, criticism, even though we followed the same procedure this in January as you have, Paul, for the last, I think, 30 years, closed session. But if we're going to have an open session, I think I like the idea. I think we have to go out of our way to be extremely transparent. And so I look at this as a new decision, and I think we need to be transparent with the community. And since, again, it is unique in the sense that Ken is not here and we're not actually interviewing, but we know him enough and we have enough information provided by him in the past, his resume, along with some recommendations, I was going to suggest that we share that. Okay, we share that with the community. And I would take the hard part, because if you ever wanted to be a glutton for punishment, all you had to do is, read Ken Pellin's resume and Brent's and all their training that they've gone through over the years, and your eyes will be popping out of your head. So I'm going to give a very abbreviated version of this, of Ken's resume. And then I thought maybe the rest of the team, and I think we have some individuals here that have provided recommendations, and maybe you could go to the podium and make your recommendations if you believe Ken Pellin is still the person for the job, or if you believe that he isn't. Okay? So with that, what I would like to do is maybe start and, again, try to give an abbreviated summary version of his resume and share that with the community.
Okay, before we go any farther, Scott, Jeff, you have any issues or comments about doing that?
I'm fine with it.
I'm fine with it.
Good. So why don't I start?
We'll follow your lead.
Thank you. Unless you want to do this.
No.
Thank you. So I'm not going to get into the education or the training because there's a ton of that, but at very high level, Ken has had all the appropriate training, educational background that we look for in a leader. In terms of leadership, I'm just going to give you a few examples. Commander of the Downriver Mutual Aid Crisis Hostage Negotiation Team, responsible for training and managing a team of 14 hostage negotiations, certified by the FBI as a hostage negotiator, successfully negotiating suicidal and barricaded gunman situations to safe resolution. Received the Life Savings Award for the role as a primary negotiator, developed the standard operating procedure for the specialized unit. Elected union representative for 22 years, responsible for contract negotiations, grievance proceedings, and working with management and township officials on labor issues. Selected by the judges of the first law enforcement representative for the 33rd District Court Sobriety Court Program, providing input regarding sobriety court candidates and policies. Attended a one-week training program in Athens, Georgia, and served on the panel for 7 years. Coordinated several multi-jurisdictional task force operations that developed the skills necessary to work with officers from local, county, state, and federal agencies that included taking leadership role among senior officers. Chairman of the Wayne County Traffic Safety Committee for more than 10 years. President of the Stepping Stones Therapeutic Horseback Riding, and a local nonprofit that assists children with disabilities for more than 10 years. Responsible for managing volunteer instructors and fundraising events. Merit Badge Counselor and Parent Committee member for the Boy Scout Troop 1721 in 2012. Communications and community policing. Serving as the Department Public Information Officer responsible for writing articles, press releases, and organizing media events, attended various training courses on working with the media and conducting interviews. School of Resource Officer responsible for communications with all of the schools, planning and coordinating emergency drills, assemblies, and classroom presentations. K-9 searches, member of the School Crisis Team DARE, instructor with more than 3,500 graduates. Coordinated department open houses, assisted with the development of the Explorer/Cadet program, and responsible for our community outreach program. Manage social media for the police department. Grant writing. Long and short of this, Ken has been responsible for writing over $500,000 in grants, us receiving $500,000 in grants. He was a grant writing skills, earned a consulting position with the Office of Highway Safety that required monitoring of grants in Wayne, Oakland, Macomb, Monroe, Washtenaw, and Lenawee counties. Assisted the Grosse Isle Fire Department in 2020 that led to a grant award that allowed for the purchase of COVID-19 equipment. Taught grant writing course at Eastern Michigan University, staff in command. He has had a tremendous amount of investigative experience. He was a detective for 19 years with a wide range of responsibilities that range from investigating crimes against children and home invasion to identify theft and narcotic cases. Investigative department's only officer shooting. Specialized in training in evidence collection, death investigation, juvenile law, and interrogation technique. The list goes on for about 16 other little examples, and I think you get the message. Additional. Instructor for the standardized field sobriety testing training program. Taught this program for Macomb County Community Advanced Police Training and Oakland County Police Academy. Committee member of Stop Underage Drinking Downriver Coalition. 3-time Mothers Against Drunk Driving Award winner. Project Director of the Year winner award by the Office and Highway Safety Planning Department. Department commendation for discovering house fire and evacuating occupants. 2-time Michigan Coalition to Reduce Underage Drinking Award winner. Life-saving award for barricaded suicide gunman situation. And there's a whole bunch of pages of training that he has taken at a very high level. Ken's an impressive leader. I think he shares the values of this commission. You know, integrity, putting community first, continuous improvement, and transparency, and treating everybody as though they are a member of the team. And that is something that I campaigned upon and would look for any individual that I would hire. So with that, I think we can maybe, Joe, would you like to come up? Did you have a recommendation or something that you were going to read? Or you just wanted to
talk about it.
Why don't you talk about it? Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I did not want to just read the recommendation. I wanted to say a few things, Paul, if that was all right.
No, you
Now, as a township trustee, I would fully not only recommend Lieutenant Pellin as the next police chief, but I would definitely support at the township board level. We did go within the police department. Chief Harden here is now from that. In the beginning, he was assigned interim chief, probably, and I'm sorry if I missed the date, but probably January 1st, close to it. So I see no reason whatsoever to change that. I think it would be a disservice to these gentlemen back here and the other officers if we went outside the department now. What they have gone through, what they've done, they worked hard. They worked hard together. I think that Ken, by the way, I would like to say I'm in contact with his wife, and he is doing very well. I know Brent did give a little synopsis of what was going on, but I just want to add a few things. That he is down now at Wyandotte Hospital. Some people didn't know that, in a rehab section of the hospital. He's doing well. He's communicating. He wants to get back to work. I know that there may be an action item going to the board, but I am in full support for not only Ken Pellin, but staying within this police department for promotions. I could name you a list, as long, even though my arms aren't that long, I could name you a list as long as my arm of his accomplishments, what he's done, everything from the school system. And by the way, even though the school system, and I don't mean to get so deep, but the appellate court in 2020 said school systems aren't businesses, but it's a business on Groseal. It's the largest business and quasi-business we have. 1,800 kids in the school system now. A parent to 2 parents each, you're looking at a third of the people on Groseal have people in the school system. He has done an incredible job in the last 20 years with the school system, and we need that back. And I think that he can do it. I think that there isn't anyone that I would want to go outside the department and get, and I know all the chiefs, I know the retirees. I would just like to say I will support at the board level staying within this police department, number one, and also whatever that and you guys as the commission obviously makes the recommendation, however you would set this up. But I would go along with that recommendation, not only from within, but for him, and however you would set that action item up. So I just want to say that instead of just reading something off, I wanted it to come straight out.
Thank you. Just moving along, maybe we should just mix it up. Paul, maybe you could read the one from the State of Michigan Department of Health and Human Resources, Diane Perkacue.
And before I do that real quick, you did a great job of going through that stuff, but one of the key items where you talked about Ken's leadership his leadership skills and accomplishments was not only did he coordinate the multi-jurisdictional task force operations in many areas with many police agencies, when they chose people to lead certain aspects of that, he as a lieutenant was on more than one occasion chosen to be the leader of that activity, and there were more senior officers that he was chosen over. So obviously he stuck out. And the other problem, and you mentioned, is going to the outside, and especially with our situation right now with skills and resources, you know, we'd also be training a new chief, you know, because he doesn't know everything. The people that we've brought up through the ranks can hit the ground running, and that's a critical, I believe, a critical attribute that should be considered. All right. So you wanted the Diane Parakel?
Yes. She's Department of Health and Human Services.
Yep. We received a letter of recommendation from the Department of Health and Human Services, Federal Youth Compliance Section, and Diane Parakel. Dear Chairperson Anderson and members of the Commission, I recommend Lieutenant Pellin for Chief of Police of Groseal. I've never met a more hardworking and ethical police officer than Lieutenant Pellin. He is committed to the citizens of Groseal and has the motivation and integrity to lead your police agency. I first met Lieutenant Pellin nearly 20 years ago during my tenure with the Michigan Office of Highway Safety Planning, and he served as project director for both the traffic and underage drinking multi-agency enforcement grants and did the job flawlessly, balancing the needs of the grant requirements with the community culture of Groseal. His insights helped shape both enforcement programs and ultimately saved lives not only in downriver Detroit but across the state as well. Lieutenant Pellin also volunteered his time for several years to train officers from the Detroit Police Department on best practices on underage drinking enforcement, earning the respect and recognition from command and patrol officers. To be able to be accepted by officers from the largest police agency in the state is a testament to his character and emotional intelligence. I not only consider Lieutenant Pellin a professional colleague, but a friend as well. His dedication to duty extends beyond the citizens of Groseal to his faith, family, and friends. Groseal Township would be well served to appoint Lieutenant Pellin as police chief. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me.
Okay. Can we get another volunteer potentially for Suzanne Sasek? Is the next one there?
We're just going to bounce around and read these.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yep,
I'll just
that's what we're going to do. We just want to share it with the public.
take the burden off of one person reading all of these?
Yes, yes, sir. Yeah.
All right, I will just read the next one. To whom
By the
it may
way, yours is a
concern-
lot shorter than Paul's. So
I know, that's why I waited.
so you should jump on this one.
But he's a lawyer, so I'm sure he'll fill it in.
Okay. Go ahead.
To whom it may concern, I am writing this letter in support of Lieutenant Pellin for the position of Chief of Police of Groseal Township. I've had the honor of knowing Ken for the past 20 years, both personally and professionally. During this time, I have seen him I have seen his dedication and devotion to our community and his willingness to go above and beyond the basic requirements of his job. Lieutenant Pellin has been a valued support system for GITS, Groseal Township Schools. He is fully engaged in school safety issues, student discipline, and community education. I have found him to be dependent, honest, and equitable, while always maintaining a professional presence. He has actively worked to build trusting relationships with various superintendents and administrators throughout the years, and this demonstrates his continued loyalty to the school district and to the community as a whole. GITS has worked diligently under former Chief of Police Joe Porcerelli to create a collaborative working relationship with the police department. Although I feel this has been stifled under the recent leadership I believe that Lieutenant Pellin will work to rebuild the relationship and continue to foster it throughout the coming years. I realize that the position of Groseal Police Chief has many assets that extend beyond community interactions and the school district, but I feel confident that Lieutenant Pellin has the necessary skills to lead and learn all aspects of the job while continuing to be the face of Groseal Police Department. Thank you for your time. Suzanne Sasick, Vice President, Groseal Township Schools.
Next up, Allen Park Police Department, Chief Christopher Egan. I've had the opportunity to work with Lieutenant Ken Pellin for nearly a decade as a member of the 17th City Downriver Mutual Aid Crisis Negotiation Team. As his commander, I have observed him to maintain his composure in stressful situations, demonstrate impressive leadership skills, and work at building our team dynamics. In 2018, Lieutenant Pellin received a Life Savings Award for his role as a primary negotiator that brought a barricaded suicidal gunman event to a peaceful resolution. It was these impressive qualities and his commitment to the team that prompted me to appoint him the next CNT commander over other negotiators with more team seniority. Lieutenant Pellin has earned a strong reputation amongst the Downriver law enforcement community for acquiring grant funds in instituting traffic safety programs. His role as the project director has helped local authorities educate the public, receive training, and conduct specialized enforcement. Without his efforts, several initiatives would never have been realized. Lieutenant Pellin is a key member of your department, but also valued community member as a coach and a volunteer with many different groups. He exhibits all of the characteristics necessary for a successful chief of police: integrity, honesty, dedication, and willingness to learn. Without hesitation, I would recommend that he is strongly considered for this position. Christopher Egan.
Okay. Paul, you said you were going to do two?
What, Michael, whatever you want.
Joanne Melikach?
I can handle that, sir.
Okay.
There's a letter of recommendation here from Joanne Lelikach. I've known Lieutenant Pellin for over 20 years. We were first acquainted when he served as the DARE officer for the 5th grade students at Meridian Elementary School. My special needs students attended his classes with their 5th grade peers. It was during this time that I realized Lieutenant Pellin had a true compassion for helping young students make choices and decisions that would lead them to become active, productive citizens. After returning to the Groseal Township School 6 years ago as superintendent, I have found Lieutenant Pellin still has the same level of compassion. My interaction with him is now at a broader level. His compassion reaches far beyond the students to the staff and residents of the community. Groseal Township is a small community, so tragedies, triumphs, and controversies impact all of us. How these are handled speaks to the integrity of the leaders of the community. As a lieutenant on the Groseal Police Department, Lieutenant Pellin is part of that leadership team and possesses qualities that people respect: compassion, honesty, confidentiality, and transparency. As he helped lead the district through several unfortunate situations, he has done it with the utmost respect for the individuals involved. This has led to a trusting partnership with students, staff, and administration. Lieutenant Pellin has partnered with the schools to bring active shooter training to the community, and his insistence in involving the churches and businesses is an example of how well we all need to work together to continue to make Groseal the safest community in the state. I write this letter as a personal recommendation for Lieutenant Pellin because I have experienced firsthand the kind of leadership that is needed in a community as unique as Groseal. Please feel free to contact me.
And for those of you that don't know, Joanne Lelikach was the superintendent of schools for how many years, Joe, roughly? And she just retired this year. So I believe Mr. Zelasco? John, why don't you come right up? And then I think, Kathy, you had sent something in, and maybe you just may want to come up and say it yourself after.
I want to thank you all for allowing me to present here. First, Ruth, I think I was talking to you way back in Stevens' days, or no, you weren't here for Lions, right? After observing all this tonight, and I'm happy I stayed for this review, maybe you need to ask her to stay on for another 6 months to a year.
She already said no.
Doing the transition. Money talks, and she'll stay. And Chief, congratulations on your retirement. Congratulations on Brozak's promotion. And, I've traveled quite a bit, and I'm really, really overwhelmed how well organized this police commission is. And something very important that the chief mentioned earlier, you have 5 candidates. I've totally dismantled what I was going to say because so much I learned tonight. So, he's the seed. All the chiefs that have been here are the seed to the succession plan, the word that's important in the corporate world, succession plan. For all the hires that he's made, and all the chiefs have made, and all the commissions have recommended, that's what keeps the in-house growth and development. And that's key, because this is a very small community, 10,600 people, citizens, and this police department is so well organized and it executes so well. That's why you don't hear much about the police department. They're doing their job. They're non-political. They try to keep their nose clean. They make sure everybody else behaves, all the citizens. Seriously, Ruth, you need to stay for another 6 months to a year. But, the overall sincerity of what you all said tonight is that this organization, and this is what this is, an organization, in the sense that we got to keep our own promotions within, because the fabric of what's here will be dismantled and break down. Because, these gentlemen train all these new rookies. May I use the word rookie? They're the future. They're the Ponzarellis, they're the Hardens, Carmack, Price. And, I remember going back to Chief Lyons when they were trying to bring in the Wayne County sheriffs. I don't know if you guys remember that, at the Recreation Department on Meridian. And what a ruckus that was. But what I'm saying is that was the best decision, staying on Grozio, keeping Grozio together. I do not believe that the board members would commit suicide by going outside. If they have the narrow-mindedness to do this, they should all resign. And all the citizens of this township should make sure they understand the message. Because the board members have got a real asset here. And you said the chief in Allen Park made a recommendation, and a young lady from the school system. I've had 2 boys go to the school system here, and they remember him. They both live in New York, but they remember him very well, and I know him by just being a citizen here, and I'm really impressed by his delivery, his knowledge, his background. I mean, you threw me off the chair when you were saying all the things he's done, and that wasn't all of it. To go outside is to dismantle everything we've got here, everything Chief over here has kept together. He carried forward and kept it together. Warner kept it together. And you're going to get a lot of disgruntled officers here. There's too much success going on in this city. And forgive me for saying city, township. I don't think these officers should be taken out of a succession plan. A great organization only succeeds by its leader. The team of the leader, the speed of the leader determines the rate of the pack, meaning there's nothing wrong with this engine here, this police department. It's doing a fantastic job. You all have a lot of background in isolating a good candidate. He has a lot of background in isolating a good candidate for an officer. You've done your job. 5-0. It wasn't 4-1. It wasn't 3-2. It was 5-0. I think you should make sure that they deliver on their word as good members of the board of the Groseal Township. They've taken their oath to protect this township, and we got to make them and put them to task that they got to deliver on their word to protect this township. This township, in today's day and age, has held itself together. You know, I was just telling my wife the other day, you know, I don't know how we picked Groseal. It has something to do with fishing. And I'm the luckiest guy. And the two biggest things about Michigan is its people and Groseal. I'm from New York originally, from Long Island. I grew up in Long Island. And I'm very, very lucky to be here. I consider myself very fortunate. And with a special needs child, even more so, because the state of Michigan is one of 2 states besides Texas that support and protect special needs until age 26. I don't know if you all knew that. And what I'm saying is Groseal has been nothing but an asset to me, to us, my family. And I'm sure that people want to come onto this island, and even with the challenges to get to the island and get off the island, they still want to move to the island. So that says a lot about the police department. You know, they're the glue, and to dismantle the glue that holds this team together, and you said the word team and succession, they all go together. And all I'm trying to tell you is, you voted 5-0. There's no going back. It can't go back. Because the board members are then lying to their citizens. They got to stay fast to what the commission, I think, how many commissions do we have here? 9, 10, 11?
That's a great question.
Bruce, how many? Well, let's say it's 10. Why do we have a commission? The board should just get rid of all the commissions. Get rid of them all. They're such experts. Let them make decisions on their own and see what would happen to these great teams you have here. So I just want to say that we got to stay fast, and we got to make sure that the board listens to what is right and keep the politics out of it and keep, you know, the favoritisms out of it. My selection was based on experience from knowing the people. Some I didn't know, but also the vote from your committee, from New York Commission. You voted 5-0. I don't know how important that is to some of you out there listening, but you made that decision. You were entrusted to make that decision, and they need to respect that decision. Because the quality of the people, Hardin, Porcerelli, Barron. I remember when Barron was ready to resign before he became chief, I told him he's crazy not to take that position. If he's listening, I'm not kidding, I did tell him that. Because he had a lot of grit. He was very brave, and he was very protective of the citizens. But Porcerelli delivered on that. Chief Hardin delivered on that. Warnick delivered on that. I'm sure these gentlemen don't want to be cut at the legs and find themselves disgruntled and going somewhere else after they've given their careers to Groseal and to the citizens of the Groseal. And the citizens of Groseal are going to have to stand up and say something besides those letters you read today. We all need to stand up and say, the police commission has spoken. This police commission has to be respected. Or else they shouldn't respect any of the other commissions on the island. Who needs them if they're not going to listen to it? So all I want to say is the chemistry is perfect here. The police department has a perfect chemistry. Leave it alone. They hire the right people all the time. Look at the officers. Chief, of all the officers the department has hired, how many have been promoted? Yeah, chief, sergeant, lieutenant. We've had our own breeding, right? Yes. I mean, an example, I'm not picking on Ruth. If she thought this place was political game, she would have been gone a long time ago. And, you know, I only know her because problems I've had and issues I've had and with property and whatever else. But the point here is we need to band together as a team and make sure that the township supervisor, if it's true what you guys are saying, needs to wake up and find out why he's here. He's not here to play a political chess game. He's here to protect the people of this township. Thank you.
We appreciate your comments.
Thank you. I know we got a few others that want, Kathy?
I didn't expect to be here.
Uh-oh.
I apologize for writing your letter ahead of time.
Would you like a bigger copy to read?
No,
from?
I'm fine, hon. Thank you. And I'll read it, and then I'll have a few comments. It's a quickie. Dear Chairman Anderson and Police Commissioners, I did say I wasn't going to be here, but obviously I am. I would like to express my support for Lieutenant Kenneth Pellin for the position of Grosse Ile Police Chief. Lieutenant Pellin has been an exemplary officer for nearly 3 decades. It's a long time to be good. He has been a critical component of the Grosse Ile's numerous Safest Community Awards. As one of the early implementers of the DARE program on Grosse Ile, he has been a constant with and a role model for the island's youth since 1998. Long time. Lieutenant Pellin effectively instills confidence and healthy decision-making choices in dealing with the critical issue of substance abuse that Grosse Ile youth faces on a daily basis. As an outstanding officer, Lieutenant Pellin will be very effective, inclusive leader that will unite. And I think that's a word I really want to stress, unite. Because right now, with all the turmoil that's been going on in COVID and everything else, I think the police department could really benefit from being united behind one of their own. To benefit the Grosse Ile residents, he will lead with the best process plan of action initiatives. With his extensive departmental experience, numerous certifications and commendations, Lieutenant Pellin is the best choice for Grosse Ile Police Chief, in my opinion, and I think in a lot of people's opinion. Sincerely, Kathy Walker. And I just want to stress, I'm coming from a female side, how important the police department is to women. You have no idea, like tonight when I came home and it was dark, I wasn't worried because I knew I was safe. I was on Grosse Ile. I didn't have a problem. Get out of my car, walk to the house. No, you don't worry like you do in other communities. Just right across the bridge. We want to keep that. We want to keep the safety. We want to keep the integrity that we have and not change it. And I'm not saying there aren't wonderful people in other areas, but we have had real success with the people we've had here and promotions. And as recently as when Mr. Ream left, we promoted within Derek Thiel. And it's working great, isn't it, Derek? Of course it is, Derek. They're listening, Derek. Everything's working great. But again, we promoted from within. They didn't look elsewhere. And it was brought up. But they said no. They knew what they had. They had a piece of gold in him, and they wanted to produce it. We have that in Lieutenant Pellin. And with good luck, his health will improve quickly, and he will be able to serve the community. And I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Kathy, did you notice that Derek's popping out a few gray hairs since he took on his new responsibilities?
We'll bring you some time.
I think I saw the CVS buying something.
Before we go on, Brent, I don't know if you want to say something or anything. I know you guys have been kind of rivals and it's been kind of contentious, but you guys have been friends a heck of a lot longer than you have been rivals. And I just want, to give you an opportunity if you'd like to say anything.
Well, I'd like to say that Ken's condition, I've been very concerned over that for the past month and a half. I want him to make a full recovery. The police department has been a proponent of just hopefully him getting out of the hospital as quickly as possible. What he's sustained, without getting into particulars, has been a a tremendous burden, and I know he's looking forward to overcoming his challenges. With his position with the police department, yes, we vied for the same position, which was chief of police. Ken has a significant amount of training. He has the experience. He has the background of being a chief of police. He does. And, with that, it's the choice of the police commission to make a selection of one over the other. And I'm confident that, your decision as you made it is what you believe to be true. So I support the decisions that are made, and Ken Pellin, with his history and with the education that he has, he'll make a chief that will deliver on the job description that's there. So,
Thank you. Okay, do we have anybody else? Roberto?
Button here, Brett, bring this up.
Switch over here, Bob. On the right. You want it up or down? Up?
Up. I'm getting shorter, but I'm still too tall for that.
I put it down for me, Bob.
That's good. No, that's good. That's good. First of all, two very special people to me that have announced their retirement, Ruth Kalidas and Brent Harden. Congratulations and thank you for your years of service. I remember back, Ruthie, when we were doing the first 5-year plan, and we needed all the typing and the charts done in the many hours you put in pulling that together. I was just one of your personality. You just never gave up. Did such a great job. It was a pleasure working with you. Brent, same with you. We've known each other a long time. I want to compliment you on your presentation on the budget. You showed the numbers that we forecast back in 2018. We're at 3.7. We were at 3.695. I'll tell you what, to be within a couple $1,000s in a 4-year forecast on a $3.7 million department, where I come from, that's pretty damn good.
I had a good mentor, several of you, so thank you very much.
Okay. And Paul, your opening comments were excellent, but I would have expected nothing short from a person who has been in management as many years as you have, just like the other fellows up here and myself.
Especially being a Ford guy, right, Bob?
Yeah. Hey, the Ford guys aren't all bad. Okay. I also would like to, as a former commissioner and 38-year resident of this community, recommend Ken Pellin and support him for the chief of police position now that Mr. Harden has announced his retirement. As a former member of the Groseal Police Commission, I have had the opportunity to interface with a special group of people responsible for presenting our community with an award-winning police department. Lieutenant Pellin has played a lead role in bringing this achievement to fruition. It is his leadership quality that motivates performance, builds confidence, and encourages others to perform as a team. Ken's leadership has been evident in all of his endeavors. His leadership and devotion to his job have earned him the respect of both the department and the community. His accomplishments as a leader have continued to complement the Groseal Police Department. A lot of these have been mentioned, so I'm going to run through them quickly. Some of his accomplishments include leading our youth programs, such as DARE, and preparing our children for the future by educating them on the importance of dealing with drugs. Leading charitable events, such as the annual Stepping Stones program, that has benefited thousands of handicapped children. Performed in a lead capacity representing the Police Officers Association and working with the township to address important contract issues. leading our grant writing program, providing funds which have benefited both our department and our community, leading our department in preparing events such as the department open house, which has become so important in providing awareness and communicating the public safety program that our Grosse-Ile Police Department continues to deliver. Lead position with our downriver hostage negotiation team to resolve life-threatening situations. Leading the department in promoting prevention techniques for our school safety programs. Leading as an instructor by teaching safety-related courses to other members of the department. Served 18 years in our Detective Bureau to address pertinent issues involving our youth, as well as the community in the district court. I'm going to bring it to an end. He is also a graduate of the Staff and Command School, just as Mr. Harden was one of our other officers who did. I'll stop at that because we're just going on and on. Ken's numerous awards and accolades over the past 28 years further complement his experience, his talent, his leadership, and devotion to both the department and the community. His quality of leadership has proven to be a valuable asset to our police department. Key point: we are very fortunate to have an individual of this caliber that can provide the talent from within our own department. I am confident that positioning Kenneth Pelland as our Chief of Police would be a sound and rewarding decision for the department and for the Township of Grosse-Ile. Bob Zalasko, 38-year resident and former member of the Police Commission. Now, there was one comment in here that I'd like to expand on, if I may, and it's already been brought up. We are very fortunate to have an individual of this caliber that can provide this talent from within our own department. Promoting from within. Mr. Pelland, has fought for his life in the hospital. He's made a miraculous recovery. He's on the mend. Positive comments by the doctors for a full recovery. He's already speaking. He's already in therapy. I would hate this man, with all of his devotion and wanting to come back to work, I don't want to see him come back and find somebody else from the outside sitting in that Chief of Police position. I don't want to see that. We look back and we say, okay, again, talent, promoting from within. We have so much talent in our own backyard here. It's been proven. How about the person that, as was mentioned earlier, brought us the Safest Community in Michigan Award 8 years in a row? The man who put together the first 5-year plan to show the public where he was going to be with his police department in the upcoming years, and he delivered. A 5-year plan that, with all due respect, our board doesn't even have yet. We all know who that person is. His name is Joe Porcerelli. And the reason I bring this up is because that's further talent that we have in our own backyard. Should we need consulting or some assistance in the transition of this, bringing our management program on board, the talent is right in our own backyard. We don't need to go outside. It would be foolish. And how about the hard-working men and women of our police department that have showered us with outstanding performance over the years to bring this police department where it is today? As John Spott said earlier, what about them? These people have worked very hard. They have got talent. It is a manager's dream to be able to have that talent and be able to promote from within. And we have it. To go to the outside would be a devastating move. It would also break the police department, which took years to build, and which would take you years to repair if you do it. Trust me, 32 years in management, I've been down the road a few times. With that said, to be able to have the opportunity to promote people and reward people for a job well done and bringing them up from within, the reward is really ours. Let's not be foolish and throw it away. I'm here to support Ken Pellin for the chief of police position. I'm here to endorse not going to the outside with all of the talent that we have within this department. And I'm here to support, as always, this commission. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Bob.
Anyone else?
Anyone have comments about recommendation for the action item?
Right here.
I'd like to make a comment if I can.
Oh,
I normally speak here just the thoughts that I have and they're organized, but today I chose to think a little further, and I chose to write this down. Mike, I'm going to hand this to you. This actually sounds like a conclusion to what you people have said tonight. I'm going to read it slowly. For decades, until recent past years, the police personnel decisions, reviewed and recommended by the Police Commission, have been reviewed and approved by the Township Board. Those decisions have repeatedly yielded a succession of remarkable accomplishment. Today, our police face unprecedented challenges. Their staff counts are less than they should be, and the COVID-19 has challenged the availability of existing staff. The teamwork and dedication of our existing force is attributable to these past leaders whose leadership, guidance, and spirit inspires our existing police staff to serve our community. Ken Pellin is the only person of that group who now remains. For decades, it has been tradition to promote from within and to carry on the spirit of teamwork and service that earns high recognition. It makes sense that Ken Pellin be extended opportunity to fulfill the role of police chief, and that others who have so ably served be promoted to fill ranks made vacant. What I'm suggesting is that this short series of sentences be the chassis of a presentation when you choose to nominate him, be made to the Township Board for their review and the reason why you're propelling it for his placement.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for your comments.
Thank you, sir. That's great. Thank you. Okay. Do we, Paul, I think unless we have any other speakers, anyone like to say something?
I'll just go back around the table here.
I just want to say, my mic is on. There we go. We did the initial recommendation in February of 2021. The board has never made a determination on that, so until they do, I find it problematic to make any other direction or vote at this time that would not be in promotion of Lieutenant Pellin. And at the same time, I've also never been presented with anything by the board or anybody else of that nature that would want me to change my position or my thoughts regarding the chief position. So with that said, I think that although I have some significant concerns regarding Lieutenant Pellin's ultimate health and his recovery and the time of when he's available, we've been lucky to have Chief Hardin stepping up and filling that position. With him leaving here in December, I don't see a problem with somebody else filling that position on an interim basis, especially with what the department has gone through over the past couple of months with other people stepping up for the benefit of the police department. So although I think and I think we all share the significant concerns about his health. I don't see anything that until the board makes a final determination of the chief position, I don't see how we could change our vote for anything else than what we've already voted on.
All right, just to be sure I don't misunderstand anything, and I think what Mike is proposing, and I believe you are concurring with that, but I think we're looking for a motion to reaffirm the recommendation of the Roseville Police Commission to recommend that Ken Pellin be promoted to the police chief, contingent upon his recovery.
I think what we probably need to do realistically, I mean, is put a time constraint on that. I think that 90 days, you know, according to what I've heard from, you know, the reports from Joe, and, you know, Joe, what you've heard indirectly from Nancy and the doctor's opinions, that would be reasonable, and then, you know, reconsider after that, or whatever. And if something changes dramatically for the better or for the worse, then we go back. But sorry, John, go over.
Can you explain that 90 days?
Well, to recover, to show that he can do the job.
I don't think, do you have a legal right to even say that? I mean,
Well, I don't know if I do or not. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm just I'm a commissioner.
you voted for him, you earned that right. There's no one in their right mind that would go against that. I think recovery time has no limit. With the extent of something catastrophic going on. I mean, he's on his way back.
Mike, if you don't mind, I think I understand where you're going with this, but logically, take the timeline out of the equation.
It's contingent upon
Be contingent upon him. That's just it, just him. There could become an interim person from within during the meantime until.
Yeah, I'm perfectly okay with that. I'm even better with that. I just think that realistically, at some point in time, if we determine down the road that things aren't going well or well enough, and that we do need a body, you know. And so I guess I'm fine with that. We'll just leave it the way it's written. Okay.
So is that your motion?
That would be the motion to recommend Lieutenant Pellin be promoted to
Reaffirming our
police
previous recommendation
From February
from
2nd,
February, whatever.
2021.
So, and just real quick, before we put it to an actual vote, again, I want to reiterate that I think this is an issue that, again, has never been brought up with the board, with us as a commission being able to discuss with them. I know I've said it multiple times that we still need to have a sit down with the board to figure out what their thoughts are. So with that, I still make the invitation that the commission and the board needs to sit down together to figure out what concerns they have about this recommendation.
I agree with what you're saying, but I believe.
And I'm not saying to hold the vote
we need
tonight. I'm saying
make-
just in general.
We need to vote on the action item, and the next step to that would be to request that meeting, I believe.
Right, I'm not saying to withhold the vote tonight. I'm saying that.
Yeah, absolutely.
we agree.
Those
No,
are,
we would-
you know, we need to put our thoughts out there.
Scott,
so.
I would love to do that, and I have asked for it, and hopefully I will continue to ask for it. I can tell you that I've spoken to most of the board representatives, and I really am still looking for some reason why they would not, what is wrong with Mr. Cullen, right? Because I just don't know. I'm a board member.
But not to parse this.
And so anyways, yeah, I think we need to continue to try to get the board to sit down with us as a group and have that meeting. I think it should be in an open session. I really do. And I would welcome that opportunity, but I think we should have our vote and just kind of reaffirm that we haven't changed course. We are realists, you know, and at some point in time, if it doesn't look like a recovery is going to happen, then, you know, we can sit down and change our minds as well. So I think that makes sense, and I think that's reasonable. You good with that?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm good with it.
Okay, Chairman. Do your job.
I need a motion.
You got a motion.
Say it again, please, because Ruth won't be here next month for us to complain if it's not right.
I don't have I just put my agenda away. Can someone else give the motion?
So you just want it read into the record as far as exactly how it's printed out on the action
Recommend
item,
Lieutenant
right?
Pennell be promoted to Chief of Police contingent upon his recovery.
I would recommend that we revise that to indicate that we're reaffirming the recommendation from February. You know,
Okay.
It's just add that into that.
In an open session.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
In an open session. Okay, so recommend Lieutenant Pellin to be promoted to police chief contingent upon his recovery, consistent with our original recommendation.
Of February 2021. That sounds good. Is that right?
That's right.
Because I'd like to just make the point that Police Commission's responsibility here is to fulfill its obligations under Chapter 67 and make the recommendation. Although we all have our own feelings about how we'd like to see the Township Board act, the Township Board
that
then
to it?
has their, no.
Open meeting?
No. You know, the Township Board has their responsibility, and I don't want our motions or anything else here to cross that line.
So
the next step would be, I think, what you just mentioned. Right. To if there were disagreements or something, then we discuss it. But I don't want to muddy it up here.
So Ruth, you have the motion. Does somebody second that motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Good question. All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Still unanimous. Okay.
Okay, and for the people here, you know, at this point, we're going through the action item. I'm sorry that we couldn't, you know, continue the discussion at that point. I know we're going to be going into a public session. Please hold that comment and bring it up. All right, does anyone up here have any other discussion on the action items? I appreciate everybody's work on this and their emotional fortitude to continue what's been a long process here, so 10 months or so. And I appreciate Ruth. I appreciate Brent. It's not been fun for anybody. And we'll see how much longer it goes on. All right. At this point, we're to the public comment section of our portion of our excuse me, of our commission meeting. And I think I'd like to make the first public comment because I didn't say anything earlier upon Brent's retirement. I'm the only one up here that can say this. I hired Brent, and that was a few years ago. And we went through an interview process, and Brent was deemed to be the unanimous choice of the commission at that time. There were a few, what would I say? There were a few contentious issues for some reason. I mean, it never happens, right? Not the police commission or anything else. But we almost lost Brent. He was on the Detroit Police Department. Some of the stories he, told during his interview were quite interesting, quite compelling. But I heard through the grapevine of phone calls between the commission and the chief at that time that we weren't gonna, that Brent was no longer our guy or our preferred applicant. So I said, kind of WTF, So I talked to some people and said, do you mind if I go talk to Brent? So Brent and I had some discussions, and the long and the short of it is, fortunately, Brent did become a police officer on in the Grosseal Police Department, and I've never been more proud to be able to say that I'm glad that we brought Brent in and we're able not to lose him. So that's my comment, Brent.
Very kind, thank you. If I could just add on to that, Mr. Anderson. I just want to give the police commission and the citizens of the township of Grosseal the confidence that for right now in the interim, Lieutenant Carmack and Sergeant Brozick and possibly Sergeant Vasquez in the interim, we're passing on the torch that those individuals would be able to continue to deliver the service until Lieutenant Pellin is back in service. Having said that, with Lieutenant Pellin, if he's ultimately selected by the township board, I have nothing but I just want to extend that I have confidence that he would do a good job and that he would get my ultimate support in that end to continue to do the job he's been doing for decades. And so there's no, yes, there was I don't want to even use the word competition. We were vying for a certain position and he was selected, and he has my full support if that ends up coming to pass. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any further public comment? I see some people out there. I see Greg, everyone but you spoken, but that doesn't mean anyone sitting out there can't speak again.
Right. Greg Karmazin, homeowner, property owner, 21228 East River, Grosseal. First of all, I just want to commend the commission for their work tonight, and also the officers, management of the police department. I think that we all agree that one of the things that makes Grosseal such a special place is public safety. It's first and foremost in the minds of residents here, and it's been that way for decades. It's a long tradition on this island, and I think everybody that lives on this island cares about this community, needs to pay attention to this decision on the hiring of the next chief of police. I know that the township board meeting that's coming up on Monday night on October 25th, this may be on the agenda. Some aspects of this may be on the agenda for discussion, and I encourage any residents out there watching tonight or may watch this on replay that they should watch Monday night, because that's going to be a very important meeting. Now, moving on to a couple specific comments and questions, I just want to clarify something on the vote that you just took place. I know that Commissioner Jarecki was bringing up the motion tonight. My understanding is that the discussion that you went through tonight is very similar to what you did in the closed session back in February or January, whenever it was held, but that tonight the vote that you took was based on all the information that was presented tonight, that it was based on the recommendations, the resume, the discussion, the input from the community, everything that you you based your decision, your vote on tonight was based on the information that was provided tonight in this open session. Would that be correct in my understanding?
I would prefer you didn't put words into our mouth. Because,
well, I'm asking as a question.
We reaffirmed tonight the decision that the commission made in February of 2021 after reviewing all the input that we had at that point in time. There might have been a couple of verbal recommendations here that we didn't have in writing back then, but I'm not going to go through a checklist or something.
Mr. Chairman, just
it's nothing, again, and you always try to get me to say something, Greg, that I'm not going to say. And the point is, what we said tonight was based on what you heard tonight, and it was a motion, and the words is nothing more than the words of the motion.
Right, and I'm just saying that it's a correct interpretation for any citizen watching this to understand that this vote tonight took place in an open session. All the information that you based your vote on tonight was based on what was presented here tonight in an open session. So to comply with the Michigan Open Meetings Act, anyone that has any concerns about that, and of course that was a concern that was raised by one of the trustees, that and tonight
I'm not going to get into
the
discussion of the not the vagaries but the details of that. Yeah. There's some other things there that still there's discussions going on. Let's just leave it to say that what's on the record here tonight is what tonight was meant to say. No other ins and outs.
No problem. Thanks for your answer. I do have a couple of questions, though, that I would like to run through, because, and I think it is important that you know, there have been a lot of concerns and questions raised, and sometimes various officials have talked about misrepresentations and facts not being, you know, discussed correctly in the community. So
as
I'm
always, if we can,
to establish.
We will give you answers
to
your questions.
Former township manager Dale Riem, in his capacity as township manager, it's my understanding that he was the human resources director of the township, and that he was aware that you were discussing the filling of the chief position back in January or when you originally learned of it.
I had no discussions with Dale at that point in time, so I have no way of knowing what was in his, what he knew or didn't know.
Okay, so my question is, though, that once the commission presented the township board with its recommendation, there was no concern that was raised by township manager Dale Riem or anyone else about the process that you had followed for making that recommendation. Would that be correct?
I have no way of knowing what Dale said or didn't say.
Yeah, but my point is that this commission was not made aware of any concern that was raised by the township manager or any other board member after receiving the recommendation of the commission. Is that correct?
I would say that there were numerous conversations that went on once we submitted, and Mike, you can speak to this, once we submitted our recommendation. And Mr. Lawyer, I mean, I don't want to run afoul of something here, but basically all I can say is I have no idea where Dale fit into this discussion. We had no personal face-to-face discussions with Dale.
Right.
Okay, we submitted our recommendation through our liaison, and it went to the township board. And what discussions happened there, I have no way of knowing.
So essentially what you're saying is that it's a fact that no one from the township board or the township manager raised a concern about the manner in which you made that recommendation.
I don't think I said that either.
Well, did you hear any concerns that were raised at the time you made the recommendation? Yes or no?
There was a lot of conversation.
Not at the time we made the recommendation.
That's the point that I'm getting at.
There was no concern about how we conduct, because it's the same way they did it the last 30 years, right?
Right.
And so, you know, just from my perspective, and maybe we can cut this short, Greg, but hey,
Ken has worked for the department for 32 years. There's a lot of information on Ken. This doesn't have anything to do with Ken versus Brent tonight. This is just, is Ken qualified to be, the chief of police? And we just looked at that 32-year career, and we considered input from people that have made recommendations for him, and that's our decision, that we're in an open session recommending him basically to be the next chief of police, and that's it. And I think it's been done properly.
Good. Okay.
So I think we can cut that. I think we're good.
Good. Okay. That's all I have.
But has this commission been criticized before? Yes, of course.
Right.
Okay,
I
it would
commend
be
you on your work.
disingenuous for me to say anything else.
Yeah.
But I think you saw what happened here tonight. We made our recommendation, and we did it based upon a 32-year career police officer that has done a fantastic job.
Yeah, I agree. And again, commend you on your work on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Anyone else have any comments? Come on up, sir. And I guess I would be remiss
They're
if
probably
I...
going to cut you short at the next
That's okay.
6 board meetings.
No, you made a comment that in your discussions with the board that you really haven't been given a good reason not to carry through.
In my opinion, I have not been
Right.
given a good reason.
And you, Mr. Anderson,
Uh-oh.
you've been at it since February, and you still haven't heard a comment. And Mr. Longton and Mr. Hubbard, have you heard any other comments? And the answer is no.
Well,
The decision is very
you gotta
simple.
be careful there, sir.
No.
Because we have had conversations with many members of the township government. Myself, Scott, Mike. So there have been many discussions, but, I have no idea, or excuse me, I have no way of trying to remember every one of them right now. The reality is, whatever officially has been said by the township board would have been said at a township board meeting, and it would be on the record.
Well,
So
I just want to.
I just don't want to put any words out there that aren't what's in the township board minutes.
Well, I'm in support of y'all. I mean, absolutely, 110%. But I'm just trying to get to the point here that the township manager, I won't mention his name, had an issue. Lieutenant Pellin represented the police department. As a knight in shining armor, he had to represent the police department and did his job. And the point is, the police department was right. So the point here is, we have no choice but to bring that man on. And as for medical reasons, I'm throwing this at Mr. Longton. I don't know if he's a counselor for you or he's just here as a commission.
Oh, he's a commissioner that unfortunately happens to be a lawyer, so.
What I'm trying to get at,
who we refer
I wasn't
to
trying
at
to argue
times.
with you, Mr. Jarecki, it's just that that's a very touchy subject. I mean, if someone's out, got sick while he's doing his duty, and, it's really ironic. You guys have delivered on all your deliverables. He has delivered on all his deliverables. So let's get on with the show and let's support the team and bring Lieutenant Pellin on.
And says what you just said, we have communicated to the board through our liaison and in discussions with the township
And like I said an
supervisor.
hour ago, if the board members and the supervisor cannot see the light and the truth, I think someone should give them the pink slips to resign. Thank you very much.
That's not my place to say.
Scott, you brought up something about vehicle maintenance, and you had to, it flashed a memory back out of my head that's got to be 30 years old, but Ryder truck rental, at that time, and I don't know what they're doing now, but they had what was considered to be the best truck maintenance program in the world. And what they did is they had it all computerized, but then the only example I remember learning about it was a water pump. But they'd change a water pump every, let's say, 83,000 miles. The pumps would usually wear out anywhere from 85 or 87 to maybe 109 or 120. Why did they replace them then? It was preventative maintenance. They didn't have to pay to have the truck towed. They didn't have to have a client that had a late delivery, all that sort of thing. I'm sure that there's some kind of a maintenance program that might exist that we could use in our police department, or maybe for the vehicles of the whole township, that would allow you to install something like that and maybe have better performance on the overall end result. That's it.
Good point. And with that, most vehicles have a recommended maintenance schedule, you know, with water pumps, fuel, you know, there is a recommended maintenance schedule. It's just a question of, do the vehicles really follow that schedule or not? And with,
well, you have we have somebody at a desk that could do that. That's all I'm saying.
Mr. Snyder, did you have something, sir?
I just want to make a statement that back in March of 2021, the Airport Commerce Park had a 5-0 vote on a certain raise that the board at that point in time chose not to listen to it. Even though that this commission has made their recommendation, doesn't necessarily mean the township board needs to follow it. So hopefully that everybody understands that there are reasons for all of that, and that I'm sure that those reasons will be heard at a board level. Thank you.
Well, just a second, Mr. Snyder.
Thank him for his comments.
This is not, I'm not supposed to discuss because that's a part of the rules, so.
Well, no, I don't know. Our rules are whatever we want at this point. But to comment on what you said, it is absolutely correct. Nowhere have we said that the township board is bound by our recommendation. All we've said is we are bound by Chapter 67 to submit our recommendation. And we can also make the comment that in the last 30 years, we're not aware of any time that a commission recommendation, other than the one you mentioned, has not been pretty much confirmed by the township boards at the time. It is a very unusual situation when the commission recommendations are not confirmed or affirmed, whichever word is better. Does that answer your question?
It wasn't a question, it was a statement.
Okay. Derek, do you have anything you want to say to us? How about that you're probably never coming to one of our meetings again?
But you're happy. Mr. Chair, can I make one comment?
Joe, you can always speak.
No, the public comments.
Yeah.
You know, big, tall Bob Z. I can't see Mr. Hubbard on the end.
Well, I think he does that on purpose so we can't see him.
Lawrence is higher than mine. You know, that's a good deal. No, I'm sorry. I just want to say one thing. It was brought up in the meeting that there's a possibility when, however this works out, because Derek and the township board obviously is going to make the final decision. That's correct. You are right, Mr. Chair. But there could be a possibility how the dynamics are with getting somebody in to this gentleman, I was going to say young man, but this young man and gentleman and young lady that are both leaving, the dynamics we've never seen. So I just wanted to say, and I was asked by one of the members, obviously, if there's anything I can do for you. I'm doing 3 jobs right now, but that's fine. Actually, I have 3 part-time jobs. That's what I did to retire. But if there's anything I can do for the police department, I'd be there for you. I don't care if it's just as, can you call me, or even to be there and help get through maybe a problem time. Not to say this is what's going to occur, but you never know when you guys make your decision and when somebody comes in and sits in that chief's chair, what timing is going to be, and no one's going to be in that office at a certain time. And then you have one gentleman in the back here, Mr. Carmack, who is the interim lieutenant who's learning, I know, some of the facets of the police department. But just so you know, if there's anything I can do for you, you know where my passion is. It's always been with the police department and the people of Groseal, and I would never turn my back on you. So
and Joe, we know that. You've always been there if any of us had a question. And along with these other discussions and the questions of Mr. Karmazin and Mr. Snyder, I'm sorry, I don't remember. Don't feel bad. John. Pardon? Sabat. John.
I just don't get to see all of you, Paul. That's why.
I know, but we're trying to do our job as the commission, and then we're working through Mike and yourself, because now, you guys got to get it across the goal line. Because, all we can do is provide the information and all the best evidence that we made our decisions on.
I understand.
So, and now, we hope that the help we need is for you to carry your side here at the board level.
And Joe, on behalf, I think I can speak for the entire community. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
We appreciate
know you really,
everything you've always done.
Thank you.
And I know Brent and Ruth said they'd both be available 7/24 as well for just the next 12 months. So that's great. We really appreciate that. Maybe I didn't hear you right. I'm not sure.
We still can, I think we can do this, can't we, Derek? They can still have our phones, can't they, for the department phones? We've done that before. For at least 6 months?
For a period of time. Yeah, thanks.
That would be nice.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank
So
you.
Derek, you didn't have any comments?
Not tonight, thank you for these.
No, but you're always welcome, and please feel free to contact any of us if you got any questions. And as you and I talked earlier, and I think you've talked to Scott, you know, we need to sit down just to have a cup of coffee sometime.
And it goes both ways. My door is always open. Feel free to stop by and talk.
Ruth, you got any parting shots?
No, I'm good. But thank you, everyone, for their comments and.
Thank you very much for all you've done over the years, because I was also involved in hiring you. And that was a super good hire. Brent, anything?
Just that this is Ruth's last meeting, and
Wow.
we've been graced with her presence for decades, and you're going to be greatly missed. So thank you for your years of service.
For your last meeting. You did a wonderful job. I think we got a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.